I remember Aaron always told me, so you can't be below 90 kilos, otherwise we can't be friends. I don't know how you squeeze in that class, Dean. But you do classic in PCA, right? So I think those weight limits are a little bit higher, or no?
They're a bit higher. I mean, for when I done NPC, I just about dropped into 90.6 was my cutoff, which is 200 pounds.
I was 90 kilos when it was natural, and I look like a skeleton. Okay, I got a good X frame, but it's zero muscle there, man. I don't know. This growth hormone is causing too much bone mineralization, just makes you extra heavy.
Oh, go to space.
Yeah, go to space. What would go faster, though? Like your bone mineral density or your skeletal muscle mass?
The whole thing, but then you grow the muscle back on a smaller frame, and then you do classic. That's the key.
I want to wait for classic and go to space for a year.
I heard that's what Chris Bumstead does. He just spends the off season in space. That way he can make weight.
You can afford it. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Anabolic Roundtable with Kurt Havens and Dr. Dean St. Mart. This is episode 12. We survived this shit for an entire year, which is amazing. And Dean didn't get the memo. He's got a full beard and a full head of hair. So I'm not sure if the three bald musketeers can continue with this podcast now, because steroids were supposed to make you bald, and you've left the chat. It seems. What's going on?
It seems so. I've broken the trend. Although, like I said before, I liked the shaved head, but the hair has made a return to my youthful 20s. Apparently so. So
there you go.
We're 17 weeks so far of hair growth. So not to give people hope, my hair grows very quick. So when people are like, oh, you didn't have hair, I had a lot of hair. My hair grows really quick. So don't take it for like, if you go for a hair transplant, you're going to have a thick set of hair within weeks. I've just got good hair genetics for growth.
Well, you know which compounds to take and when to take them, obviously. So that might help a little bit. Like I have to trim this hair like 4 times a week to keep it short, because otherwise I have an afro, literally. It's insane. Yeah, it's like long, curly. It's crazy. So
I'm past
I'm calling Dean's bluff. I think that's a hairpiece.
Yeah, this is a tattoo.
we're past that awkward, what I call like the ugly duckling stage of the hair transplant, where you have all the fluffy hair that has no density or nothing. So we're out the other side, and apparently it just keeps getting better from here on in up until like a year and a half post-transplant, apparently. So it's just going to keep getting thicker and thicker.
It's well worth the trip to Turkey to get that done.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, consider Morgan said to me last night, she looked at a photo I was on vacation last year, and she said the difference in my hairline to back then now is a night and day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a big difference. I can remember from the last podcast, you're still a little bit of stubble, and now it's now you look 20 years younger than both of us. Thanks. Good job. And Kurt, your hair is growing back as well. Finally,
bit, slowly.
Yeah. Are you gonna let it grow out like Dean, and then I gotta compensate?
We'll see. I don't know.
Shit.
I mean, I like having a shaved head. I just like the option of having hair if I can.
Yeah, I prefer a shaved head. It's especially here in Thailand where it's super hot. Yeah, it's easier, and it's very aerodynamic, and you don't have to go to the hairdresser like 3 times a week to keep the fade going.
Yeah,
that's the worst.
Yeah,
that's the worst.
That has been the challenge again of before with the shaved head. You literally just keep running the razor over your head every day. Now it's literally every 2 weeks. Like you said, you have to go and get the sides tidied. You have to get hair tidied. And obviously that takes time out of your week, work, money, everything else. So if you're looking for a productivity tip, just go bald.
Yeah, saves a lot of time. It takes like 5 minutes to get this done instead of going to the hairdresser, waiting your turn, and then the obligatory chat with the guy, the small talk, and then 30 minutes later out the door. But if you do that like every week, I don't know, so I could spend my time a little bit better. Is it like doing these podcasts, for example? Yeah. Any cycle updates you guys want to give? I mean, it's customary to talk about drugs, self-reported drug use at the start of the podcast.
Mine, 17 weeks post-transplant. We've 14 weeks to our vacation. This is the first week where I've had to take off training. I had a good run of 12 weeks. Last week I said on my update with training on Instagram was that it was the first week where numbers and progressive overload were slowing down, and I knew it was sort of coming at the honeymoon phase of everything ramping up. And then I went into train legs on Monday. I've been doing the Arsenal hack squat with the 2 green bands, so that's been like standard. And I worked up to 9 plates aside for the 4 reps. Went in this week, done 1 rep, and my knees were screaming at me. And I was like, okay, that's the end of that set, and that's the end of this session. I just left the gym.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's the best way to approach it. Otherwise, you just hurt yourself, and then the next day you can't walk, you know?
I mean, if I had been maybe younger, I would have been stubborn. I would have just ground out the whole set of like trying to beat the 4 reps in the book. But literally the first rep, trying to come out of the bottom, you just feel like grinding of your knee joint, even with the bands trying to support. Nervous system was just telling me I've had enough. And obviously that's been ramping up to that point to 125 test. So I think another 3 weeks, and I'll give myself 10 weeks to get in good shape for our holidays. So I'll go the route of, I think I have it made up in my head of, we'll just double up to 250. Might need a small bit of estrogen control, and then we'll go and do our experiment with the controversy that kicked off last week with the whole 10 milligrams of Tren. And what are you doing such a low dose for? Let's put it to the test again.
Yeah, well, it worked for me last time I did 25 milligrams, and at least mentally you feel okay. You're going to throw in the last vial of Dienolone that you still got laying around?
I gave that away. Someone was I did. Someone was in need of it, and I gave it away. It wasn't
Gave it away for a good cause.
I was helping someone for a show, and it was just sitting there, and I thought, here you go. Enjoy as much as I did. So I've none of the elusive, no matter how many DMs I get over our experience talking about it. If I had somewhere that had it, then you'd find out. But
I told a couple sources to put it on their list, and they're like, we can't fucking find it anywhere.
Start looking at how to synthesize it. I can't. Well, to be honest, I can't see it being as difficult as Tren. So it's probably a couple of steps in the synthesis. If I have a look at it,
it's earlier.
It's earlier. Yeah, you just don't add the third.
You can start from estrogen.
The third double bond in the line, so it's a diene, so 2 double bonds. Might not be that difficult to make if we get through, obviously, the political nature of what we're going to talk about probably in a while, of manufacturers causing a drought in the world, to put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, who knows, man? Maybe 5 years from now or 2 years from now, it's readily on the market, and then people actually enjoy it. But how many studies were on there on Dienolone? Like maybe 5 or 6?
Yeah,
and they're all old? Yeah.
I mean, that was almost a synergy last year. If they go back and watch the early episodes where I put 10 milligrams of the Tren, 10 milligrams of the Dienolone, I didn't run it by itself. Where in theory, on paper, it looks like you can. It was more so adding it in and seeing what like the 1+1 effect created. But you see it in my physique, I really enjoyed it. So the next diet phase, just bump the test, small bit of Tren, and then we'll see as we get closer. Maybe we'll go back to our favorite S tier. I was going to say A tier, S tier oral to make things a bit interesting.
Well, you put Dienolone in S tier, so you created some demand. And we put the Anabolic in F tier, and then we created some hate, so you can't win. Kurt, what's your cycle? You still been cruising and just taking it easy? There you go. You can't show that on TV, man.
No.
And you make everybody jealous.
No, HRT. That's it.
HRT in a box of serious, Tim.
Well, technically, that's part of my HRT. I'm prescribed it, so.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, man. Yeah. Growth hormone replacement therapy, GHRT.
It's amazing how well that works to preserve muscle and keep your body composition better than any steroid.
Test and GH is the.
I've not lost. I've been trying to downsize. It is quite difficult to.
You got to stop eating.
Go
through a divorce.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Then you can lose size.
No, it is pretty amazing stuff. So
cool. And nothing else, Ed, and that's probably where you're going to leave it for the next foreseeable future. Yeah, I mean, you look solid.
Honestly,
so.
yeah, I don't really have a need for it at the moment. So
I met one of your clients, José, in the gym a while back, and like the progress he's made over these last 1 year, it's insane, dude. He was like, and he finally added in with a little bit of Masteron or Primo or something Primo after a year on testing GH, and he ramped up the GH a little bit. And I saw him in the gym. It's like, fuck, man, you're getting bigger than I am. It's not fair.
Let me see how much progress he's made in a year. It's a lot. He's 220 now, so 100 kilos.
Strong as an ox.
Yeah. He's got freakish genetics. I don't think he quite grasps how well he responds to things.
No, I told him. I said, "Hey, this is not normal. So you got to roll with it now." So I want to see how far I can take it. So why not? You know,
he was.
If you got the energy for it, go do a show.
He was 163 when I met him, and he's 220 now.
Yeah, after 1.5 years.
It's been
Yeah. Yeah, it's insane progress what he's made. Stayed lean the entire way through. I'll see if we can share some pictures. I'll ask him, and by the time this episode goes live, I'll put it overlaid here at 10 minutes in. Because I mean, it's so funny. Like sometimes we discuss like these kinds of cycles, like test Primo GH or testing GH, and people have no idea what to expect. Well, if you're in he's like mid-30s, close to 40 years old, José?
Yeah, 30s.
Came from a background of alcoholism, had some surgery done on his pancreas, and so he basically started from scratch.
And that's why he came to me. His pancreas was not doing well.
Yeah,
and so we were just trying to fix that, and then he progressed into where he is now.
Yeah, then in 2 years, he completely transformed.
Yep.
It's absolutely amazing.
Of course, you should see the amount of food that man eats.
Yeah. And he's got his own restaurant, so that helps.
Yeah, he's quite successful outside of bodybuilding.
Yeah. You might open up another gym here in Thailand. I can't wait.
He has one in Bali.
Yeah, I went there. So that's Undefeated Gym that he's a partner in.
Okay.
It's an amazing gym, man.
Yeah,
I went to Bali for a week, so it's like a little bit of a VIP gym because Bali is overrun with the digital nomads, and that gets to you after a while. So you go to some of the gyms like Obsidian or Body Factory or whatever. It's just full with people. It's insane. So it's a little bit too much. You guys remember when you go to the expos, right? And then you go to the most popular gym in the area, and then it's full, and it's all tripods, and everybody's talking. So that's like the common occurrence in Bali, which is good if you like bodybuilding, but not so good if you like high-level bodybuilding, because then you just want to be left alone and actually use the equipment. So I went to Obsidian Gym. I could not use anything. I could not use the equipment. It was just all hoarded, all of it, and all the dumbbells you have to drag and the plates. So yeah, it was a bit much. So they're opening up some good competition. Will be a private gym, and that's it's like going to a 5-star hotel, basically. Yeah, it's very, very high value. So if they can do something, we got Unreal Gym that's something similar. But if they can do something here in Bangkok, then I'm gonna make a move. Go exclusive. Yeah. So for me, I just finished the Injectable YK11 experiment. I'm gonna rate that in A tier, not S tier. A tier. It's something else. Yeah, it's something else. It gives you different kinds of muscle contraction than Anavar. It makes you look like Superdrol, but it feels a little bit like Trenbolone. So I got the night sweats and a little bit of mood anger. And my wife was like, "Are you sure you're taking YK11? You sure you're not taking Trenbolone?" But my estrogen actually went down, so it acts as an aromatase inhibitor, and otherwise Trenbolone would detect as an estrogen, obviously, on non-sensitive blood work. So my estrogen went down proportionately to the ratio of injectable YK11 that it took compared to my testosterone. So it took like 3 portions testosterone, 1 portion YK11. And my estradiol went down by about 17%. But if you take a 1-to-1 ratio, let's say test the Primo, test Boldenone, test Masteron in some people, it goes down by 50%. So let's say your estradiol is 100, it goes down to 50. So this time it was 220. I didn't use an AI for an entire year on 600 tests. So my testosterone or estradiol was 220 picograms per milliliter. And then I went down to 180, 175, about 16, 70% reduction. So yeah, that also acts as an aromatase inhibitor, even though it's like 19-nor based or 19-nor derivative. Yeah. And I checked my diet testosterone levels because there was some scientific evidence that it also inhibits the 5-alpha reductase type 2 isoenzyme. But my diet testosterone levels on 600 tests was undetectably high. Again, it's like an ELISA test. I don't have high sensitivity testing here. So I got the results back after 3 weeks. Like, great, over 2,500 picograms per milliliter, out of the range. And then so I tested it again. I'll have to wait another 1 or 2 weeks to get the results back. If it's any lower than the beyond the detectable range, then I know that it also reduces DHT levels. But I have a feeling that they're both going to be undetectably high. Because naturally, my DHT levels are like 1,850. So that's already close to the top of the detectable range. So I did the work, but the labs are not very accommodating. But it's a nice compound. After a while, your joints feel kind of dry, like Winstrol. It has characteristics of all the steroids, it seems. Potent shit, though. If you take it pre-workout, split bilaterally, oh, man. It's like injectable Anadrol.
Interesting.
So
Good stuff. And actually, this compound is actually available, Dean.
Have
Give
you
it a try.
have you used the oral form before, or just the
Yes,
injectable?
I went from oral YK11 to sublingual to injectable. And from oral to sublingual, you notice a bit of a difference, right? Because the bioavailability should increase slightly. You just have to keep it in your mouth. And it's nasty, foamy, disgusting. And then you go to the injectable one. The first time you're like, oh, this is a good workout. Second time you're like, holy shit, I got to increase my weights. And this is where the joint problems come from, because you get strong rapidly. But weirdly, with Superdrol or Anadrol, you get strong fast also, and you don't get joint problems with that. You just feel a little bit compromised because the weights are so heavy. But about injectable YK11, you're like, something is not feeling too great. So Follistatin 344, though, that swells you up like a penis pump. Yeah. That's weird shit. My chest, like I did chest today, and it swelled up like I'm like looking at it. I'm like,
I wrote
but
off the YK11 oral, then I wrote it off too soon. Remember I said I tried like the low dose, whatever it was, 10 milligrams, and didn't see too much from it. I'm looking at the structure here because it's one of the ones where you don't really know the structure off by heart. When you look at when you look at the structure, it's very interesting because it has that like furin ring that's like Anavar, but on the complete off carbon 17, which is interesting instead of off carbon 2 on the other side, which is where it starts on Anavar. I must consider maybe sourcing.
Give it a try. Yeah, and do the injectable version. You could do it sub-Q or intramuscular if you want. The post-injection pain is very doable if it's an MCT oil. And I liked it. Yeah, it's one of the compounds that I said, you know what, this is actually worth trying. Blood work didn't change much. Liver enzymes went up slightly throughout that entire experiment. And lipids were, like my HDL was still 43 milligrams per deciliter. No, good luck getting a 43 HDL on Anavar or Winstrol or Superdrol. You get 20 or 15. So yeah, I'm pretty surprised. Everybody was always raving about it. Steve, you should give it a try. And I was like, fuck, this is a SARM. But then you look at the chemical structure, and it's just a steroid. So of course I don't like SARMs. But yeah, by acting as a follistatin secretagogue, based on this limited scientific evidence of 2 animal studies, it does give you a little bit of a unique feeling regarding the recovery and the contraction. And now I switched to follistatin 344, and that's pretty potent shit.
Yeah. But I mean, with the term SARM, though, I think people misunderstand, right? Trembolone's a SARM, Nandrolone's a SARM.
Yeah.
Pretty much like anything that's really just working through the AR is a SARM, right?
It's a dose-dependent SARM.
D-ball, Winstrol.
Right.
Yeah,
it's just dose-dependent. You lose selectivity after a certain dose, like... which I did a deep dive on GC1, Sobetirome, and that's also like selective up until a certain point, like a selective thyroid receptor beta-1 agonist, not alpha-1 or the other alpha and beta receptors, because there's 3 of each. So that's also selective, and that video will be up next week. And that increases bile acid synthesis, improves lipid levels, so you could basically replace TUDCA, UDCA, and testosterone, because it also lowers lipoproteinol A levels, with 100 to 200 micrograms Sobetirome. Just got discontinued because one of its close variants, eproterome, was shown to impair cartilage and cause some sort of liver enzyme increase in animal models. So
you don't mean, just to clarify, you don't mean replacing testosterone fully. You're saying you could reduce the dose of testosterone and make up the rest with
no.
it?
So Sobetirome is a thyroid receptor beta 1 agonist, and it's been clinically investigated. There's like 2 clinical trials in humans that got discontinued. You can't find those studies, but there's a boatload of animal models. So I reviewed everything. The deep dive will be up on Monday before this podcast releases.
Oh, so fully replace, you're saying?
Yeah. So it lowers lipoprotein A, but testosterone is also one of the compounds that lowers it better than medications. So if you want a reduction in lipoprotein A because you're worried about cardiovascular disease, instead of going on TRT, you could use this compound. Because in the 70s or 60s, they look at thyroid hormones and thyromimetics as a way to lower cholesterol levels. But they were found not to be suitable because of the thermic changes in the catabolism. Yeah, so this is it was one of those compounds that a lot of people slept on, and it's getting a little bit more popular now. So I decided to make a deep dive. Cool. I used it in the past, and it's actually quite promising. The scientific evidence is very promising. It was about 120 studies or something. So I made a direct comparison to T3 based on the molecular weight, because the molecular weight is about double that T3 compared to Sobetirome, because it doesn't contain iodine. And so it's a lot, and nitrogen doesn't contain that either. So yeah, it's actually quite promising. Yeah, so give that one a watch if you guys have time.
Yeah.
So those are my experiments, and then after this follistatin experiment, I'm throwing in the towel, man. I need a deload so bad, because this follistatin stuff just makes you train extra freaking hard, and I'm ready to deload and take a little vacation from this abuse.
What are you weighing now?
105 kilos, so it's 230 pounds.
Just a big boy.
Yeah, still a big boy. I've been trying to diet all the way through, so I could really see where the results are coming from. So it's not from the food. It's not from the testosterone, 600 milligrams of test. It's not that much, right, for somebody my size and training intensity, even though I don't know how you do it on 1/4 of that dose, Dean. I don't fucking get it.
I'm a little bit demented, maybe.
Yeah, you like to torture yourself. So I was like, you know what? I'll do the Kurt TRT dose. It's a little bit more more reasonable for me. And 625 tests all the way through, 2 ampules of Bayer testosterone, and then epicatogen, that was a failure. YK11, various administration routes, and now follistatin 344. I don't know what it is, but it'll fucking notch you up like crazy. The whole chest just feels like, you know, when you did too many sets, and it just feels like, I don't know, like it's super sore. So when I flex it, it just feels exhausted. But the next day you feel super full. So it's interesting. I would not be able to afford this myself if the affiliates didn't sponsor this, because it's $70 a pop, basically. Yeah, follistatin is expensive, man. And I'm already know, like I'm a couple days in now, I already know that it's not going to be worth the money.
Okay.
Yeah, because the changes are fun, but if I extrapolate for 3 months of use, how much money that would cost and how much muscle I would gain, no, it's not worth it.
Use GH.
You could use GH, Increlex, and take your wife on a nice holiday
at the same time.
Have a much better time. So that's my cycle. So far, so good. Might have to do some organ imaging to see if my heart is growing from all this follistatin.
Is there there's GH in there as well for you?
No, so test and follistatin.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm testing the empicatogen, testing YK11. The community was complaining that I run too much shit at the same time. So it's like, okay, fine. Testing empicatogen results, I look in the before and after pictures, I look exactly the same. And in the YK11 pictures, I look a little bit better. I think it's better if you run these compounds with more gear and GH and Increlex, but...
Is it everything?
You know.
Well, I was going to say with Dean, I would be curious with the 10 milligram Trenbolone because you're running with a bunch of other stuff, so it's kind of hard to single out what that was doing, or if there was synergy, like you said, with the other compound. I wonder if if you just use test as a base and you just added the small amount of Trenbolone, what the result would be. That would be more fascinating to me than with because I know in prep you have to use a ton of other things. It would just be interesting if you could kind of isolate what the Tren is actually doing at that dose.
Well, yeah, I think that's what my plan was, and even ahead of that diet phase, to speak, for the last 3 or 4 weeks, 3 weeks at least, SLU and all those sort of mitochondrial things have been dropped out, because I wanted to get a handling on, okay, let's reset back to like a blank slate. It's just TRT, not even GH, take that out. Follow through. That's probably why I dug myself into a hole with recovery, because the GH was helping with sleep and everything else. And then set a time point like the start of June, and no, middle of August is the holiday, and literally keep the test as the anchor, put the 10 milligrams of Tren in like the 4 times per week. We'll even, let's just settle it here. We'll do my 2 lower days, we'll do 10 milligrams of Tren. So 20 milligrams will test Steve's theory. You won't even go near 40. And let's see what changes in the pictures, and let's give it 3 weeks, because really Tren A should pretty much give us results in 10 days. And just see what happens with the logbook. Obviously, what my plan is, once I start to put the mitochondria stuff back in, is to try not change diet either, like last year, where literally you just turbocharge everything and you keep up with because at the moment my food is very high. Like I'd say on average I'm about 4,200 on training days.
Oh man.
And then back off on rest days to around 300-400. So let's see how high I can keep that food with the additions of those things that were used last year. And obviously we'll do the 20 milligrams of Tren, like we said. I won't even go near 40, and let's see what happens. And that way
you should get some like glucocorticoid receptor inhibition and just anabolic to androgenic dissociation, where you only get anabolism and no androgenic effects. Not that Trenbolone is that androgenic, again, based on the animal models. But I did that calculation with you then, Dean, for the Trenbolone deep dive, remember? And at our body weight, it's like 20 to 25 milligrams a week. You get full glucocorticoid receptor inhibition and full anabolic to androgenic dissociation. So only gains, basically.
I mean, when I put up the post on Instagram, like the amount of molecules and 10 milligrams of Trenase, you only have to take a step back. Like, and even someone asked me about D-ball and a few other orals in terms of low dose orals. Like, is 5 milligrams of D-ball like too low of a dose? When you work out how many molecules is in 5 milligrams of D-ball, it's millions of molecules. And you're
Trillions.
like, trillions even, yeah. And you sort of then have to take a step back and go, on paper, the MEHEAD associated as 5 milligrams very low. The actual number of molecules is telling you it's very, very high. Where those molecules have benefit is another story.
Yeah.
But being able to remove this bias of, I had a great discussion in the Tren post about, like, there's no arguing that 100 milligrams of Tren is going to give more efficacy or more benefit to speak over 10 milligrams, but you're causing unnecessary like spillover to other receptors.
Yes, like this.
Yeah.
Well,
That starting low and taking a chance to speak on removing that bias of more is more, start very low, see what happens. If 10 milligrams does nothing, then well, so be it. Start increasing. But the old way to speak, the old school way of going straight to like 100 milligrams of Tren A, or the way I joke is like 1 ml of a RIP blend, which is like test Tren and
Masteron.
Every other day is like the typical bro cycle. There's nothing wrong in theory that it's like throwing like 5 darts at a dartboard and hoping one of them's going to hit the bullseye. It's going to work in theory without really any education behind it to speak, but taking the bias away and removing most of the dosage, starting low and slow and working up, I think a lot of guys will get, like what we observed, a lot less of the mental side effects that carry over and all the positive benefits to the physique, which is why you're using the drug in the first place.
Well, I was going to say, I think that the two interesting things, one is very specific, the Tren that I never understood. It's the only steroid that everyone that takes it chases a feeling, right? So I think part of the reason why the dose also increased over time is because for some reason, no one that I'm aware of shoots Masteron, and they're like, I'm going to keep increasing it till I feel it, right? Like how much Masteron would that take to actually feel it? No one does it with Primo. They're like, I'm going to inject so much Primo that I can't sleep. But yet with Tren, you start someone on a low dose and they're in it for 3 days and they're like, I don't feel it. Can I go up? You give it 10, 15 days before you make that decision, because once you feel it, it's not good. Why would, but it's everyone just wants to chase that. Like they're like looking for that feeling, right? And that feeling is no longer a positive thing anymore. But that's the only drug that you see that with for steroids, right? You see that with coke and heroin. Like people obviously chasing the high.
They're chasing the hero dose, and
Trenbolone. I don't know if it's innate to the drug because of the calcium ion stuff it does. There's something about it that everyone wants to feel it.
What's the mysticism around it? Like everybody talked about trend rage and trend sex, and so it's turned itself into a meme, and people want to experience that. Like, what is the fuss all about? And I'm going to be honest, when I did Tren on my second cycle, when and I was like, I want to see what this is all about. So I started with 200 and then bumped it up to 350 within a month. That's when all the side effects came. And that's also when I made all the gains. But I think I could have made those gains on a much lower dose as well.
Yeah. Well, I think also with dosing that the vast majority of people seem to miss with steroids, the dose isn't as important as your response, right? So your response is based on androgen receptors. How many androgen receptors you have is going to dictate your response. We see that in natural people. When they do blood samples across the board of naturally muscular people, it's not actually hormone levels. It's the amount of androgen receptors they have. They can use those hormones that they have. And same with steroids. The amount of classic androgen receptors someone have, they're going to respond to a much lower dose, right? They can also tolerate a much larger dose. That's why in pro bodybuilders, you see a vast range of dosing, right? From some of these guys use very small doses and no one believes it. And other of these guys use 10,000 milligrams of stuff because they have those androgen receptors to actually deal with it properly, versus a poor responder doesn't necessarily, they just get side effects right off the bat. So they can't even really do a low dose. And then when they run a high dose, it's a disaster, right? Even with testosterone, right? There's the guys that get anxious on 200 test, right? That's not a positive thing. No, that means there's a lack of androgen receptors. There's a
and then you got to start at like 50 milligrams a week, and then slowly build it up over 3 months, and then they can tolerate 200 again, and actually go to the gym and train a little bit harder, so they make themselves tired, and then reduce anxiety through the GABAergic effects.
Yeah. But I think it's fascinating because similar to the way people chase a feeling on Tren, people chase doses like that. There's some magical number that you'll get to that you'll just right with most things.
300 pounds, baby.
Growth hormone is different. Growth hormone is going to respond in a dose-dependent manner. But I guess all drugs do to some extent. But I think with steroids, it's very individual what someone can do, right? So you both obviously have a lot of androgen receptors, so that's why something like 10 milligrams would work. But it doesn't mean the average guy on the street using 10 milligrams of Tren is going to get anything out of it, right? He might just feel it immediately, which again doesn't mean it's doing anything. That's a side effect. Right.
Yeah, or they need more Tren to compensate for the lack of effort. Like me, you, and Dean. Like we've been doing this for decades now. But the guys that usually start Tren, they're the beginners. It's a beginner drug on social media. But it's also the drug that needs to be the most respected. In reality, it's like the end stage drug, like Acute or finasteride. Or a hero's dose of LSD. Right? That's end stage. You need some experience for that shit. But nowadays it's so romanticized. And I was the same with the GH15 forum and then Get Big and all that stuff. I'm like, on my second cycle, I used it. And then I went up to 1,000 milligrams a week because that's what everybody was doing. Stupid,
And then you look at the dopamine, like what Kurt was on about, like the calcium. And when you're chasing that feeling, the other thing that can come from, and I've seen this with even consults where the androgenicity, because of its strong binding affinity, and then obviously how dopaminergic it is, you have guys then that are chasing this feeling of a very high libido, and then they're having intercourse, multiple times per day, and then when it comes out, they're like, something's wrong with my libido, and you're like, no, it's not healthy really to be having intercourse multiple times throughout the day, because of they then think that they have to prophylactically throw cabergoline in on top of the Tren, which then creates this, like, we're laughing, but this happens all the time. Of
libido, chasing the libido from coming off a Tren cycle, dude. And these guys will use anything: PT141, Cialis, cabergoline, man, Semax, Selang, oxytocin, right, to get some sort of DHEA and then oxytocin response. And I made videos about this. And then, of course, people use the entire stack then. When I say it's options, it's don't do all at the same time.
I've had younger guys come to me as clients or consults, and I think the problem is they take it all literal, right? Like you look at the list of things they're on. They took the list that you made and they took it all.
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't the point of the list.
These are
You're
options.
18 years old. You don't need 1,000 chemicals in your body.
Yeah, you need less masturbation and a little bit better food and better sleep, and then you're probably okay.
It's amazing how much just good sleep will do.
Or just some nice food. I mean, when I was on holiday in Bali, well, I'm not going to go into details, but I was sleeping like 10 hours a night and eating some good steaks and then every day, but here back home, I got responsibilities. And then it's a little bit less frequent. My cycle didn't change. It was the exact same dose of testosterone. Didn't take oxytocin with me or Semax or PT141 or Cialis. Didn't take none of that. It was just chill and in a good mood. And then you do it every day, Yeah. So, and that's not bad for a 40-year-old, I would say.
Yeah, and you think most of these guys' wives or girlfriends, unless they're 22 years old, actually want to have sex 6 times a day?
Yeah.
No, they must be on they're VAR babies. They're VAR Barbies themselves.
That's also the girl when you go to work, she's out having sex with other people then too. That's not necessarily a positive
five boyfriends on. Yeah.
Yeah, then you come off the Tren. What is she doing?
Yeah, she's going to the guy on Tren. It's fucking red flags galore. Yeah. So talking about the androgen receptors, Kurt, you brought this ARA topic up last time. Mm-hmm. People freak the fuck out.
Oh yeah.
This is the reason why I'm not responding. I have 0 GAC repeats. Okay, it might be the case for 1% of the audience.
Yeah, well, Kennedy's disease is like super, super rare.
Yeah, exactly. But Ian from Merrick Health reached out and he's like, I watched that podcast and we actually got that as a test for Kennedy's disease. So that's why I want to discuss. They have it here in Thailand as well. I didn't have a chance to do it because now I'm curious as well. So maybe I can overlay what they have at Merrick Health. Share screen. Entire screen. Select.
If he's watching this, if he gives me a discount code, I can send people there to test.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'll work on that because you got a lot of clients in the US. So it's not cheap. Right? It's $500 in Merrick Health.
Hey, but you do it once.
Yeah, you do it once. Right, you do it once. It's the same as your genetic test at 23andMe, if you still want to do it after all the staff left. So basically, it's an androgen receptor GAC repeat genetic test, and it's done for Kennedy's disease. There's not so much information here on the website. So I'll link this down below, guys. And I think they offer it to people that are already on board with Merrick Health to kind of do see how that goes and get some more experience with the results. But Mansum or Mossum, the guy that used to coach or help, I can't say coaching, used to help Samson Dauda through Merrick Health. He made a good post about this right after the podcast. It was about 2 weeks ago. So here we can see the pictures. Are you a hyper responder? And there's actually a test for that. For the GAC trinucleotide sequence, the cytosine, adenine, and guanine, which is used for Kennedy's disease, SBMA. So he made a post about that. Didn't get so much discussion going because his profile is not that big yet. So I want to bring it to Brian Johnson. Interesting. Common name. So I just wanted to mention it here that actually we can test for this, and it's not a cheap test, obviously. But if you're wondering if you have less than 22 repeats or 0, like the ARA with 0 GAC repeats, or in the favorable range of 22 to 26, or maybe a little bit higher, or a little bit lower, where it's high sensitivity. So if you have a lot of repeats or 0 repeats, it's not good for you. And if you have over 35 repeats, then you have a risk for Kennedy's disease. But this could also indicate if you have like 0 repeats, and thus you have an ARA, which is what Kurt mentioned. And there seems to be also some genetic factors. So if you have like average GAC repeats of 18 to 20, but you're white, maybe you're African American. or you have 20 to 23, maybe you're Latino, but you actually look like an Asian. So this will tell you a little bit more about your genetic makeup. I'll link the Instagram post and where you can get this tested of Merrick Health down below.
Did this stem from the discussion last time?
No, so I had this available, but not publicly. And then Ian reached out to say, yeah, we actually have this available. You can test this through Kennedy testing, because we were kind of speculating on how to get this done. I wasn't aware that you could actually test for GAC repeats, because I looked for genetic testing when I did the androgen receptor deep dive, and there was no genetic testing for that. But you can actually test it. And I think it's a swab test. Let me see. What did they say? So they were looking if they could send it to me, or I could do it here over in Thailand. Yeah, so I have a stabilization reagent, and it's a collection test, and I think it's just a general swab test, like a DNA analysis. So they were seeing if they could send it over here, and I found a place here in Thailand where I can actually test it. I just didn't get a chance to do it yet. So I might find out that I have, just average repeats. And
somehow I doubt it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I have average response, man.
Yeah.
I'm easy to grow, but
I deal with the general population. Your response ain't average.
Yeah, really? Okay, maybe I should have been a bodybuilder, professional one. It's too late.
You never know. It's too.
Yeah, it's
not too. It's not too late.
I did the gyno surgery and I got the leg surgery done. It's fucked up.
I don't think it'd be worth your time. I think is the issue.
That only. So I noticed on my progress pictures that I'm getting fucking atrophy in one calf.
Do you have a nerve issue? Where? In your spine?
I think so.
You have a disc?
So
slip?
No, so my lower back has been tight at times, and I do deep tissue massage therapy. I switched from intramuscular injections to sub-Q. To resolve it, I do my hyperextensions, or reverse hyperextensions to kind of decompress it. And I think over the last 6 months or maybe 1 year, that left calf is just slowly going away. And I noticed it in because I take a lot of progress pictures now for these follow-Saturn experiments, and every progress picture is smaller.
Interesting.
And I'm like,
what role does the intramuscular injection have?
Oh, you create scar tissue, and then maybe close to the nerve.
Okay.
Yeah, and the nerve, and then maybe pressure on the nerve. And I remember doing leg press at Muscle Factory Patio one time, and I had lower back issues for like 3 months, And then recently I did that leg surgery to get the plate removed and the screws. And then obviously I couldn't train for a while, so I didn't do reverse hyperextensions. And then I reintroduced it. Oh man, I was so tight. My lower back was like, I couldn't even do one plate. I just felt it like separate. And then now I'm up to 2.5 plates again. I used to do 3 plates per side, a little bit of momentum. Yeah. But that would really, and maybe that's the reason why one calf is fucked. But I looked at the pictures and I'm like, fuck, man, it's my time I got, at least like with Dennis Wolf or Ian Vayer or Wesley Vissers, it's happening on both sides. But for me, it's happening on one side. So yeah.
I didn't know that. They're getting atrophy in their calves?
Yeah, Wesley Vissers says no sweep anymore.
Oh. I didn't know.
And Ian Vayer never had calves, but it's also a nerve issue. And then he started getting it in his chest, and then obviously he can't compete. At least the calves you can hide away by the stage, right? Because the stage has a corner, and then most of the judges can't even see your calves.
And most of the guys nowadays don't have great calves, so you just stand next to anyone else.
But I used to have great calves, man. It was like a meme, like Steve's. Steve's got like 19-inch calves at times, so I had like freaky calves. And then now one of them is going away. And
so don't become a pro bodybuilder, become a roofer. Go up and down a ladder all day.
Yeah.
And get obese. Get obese and you climb a ladder all day. You'll have massive.
Yeah, I have genetics for being obese. That's for sure. Oh, yeah. Everybody in my family is fat as
Did you see that there's 941 known genes that affect BMI in humans? Polymorphisms.
941 excuses.
But they only account for 6% of obesity. So even with all these genetic factors, 94% is the lifestyle.
That's probably the food.
Those 1,000 genes, though, that are not.
Food is tasty, man. I can totally get it. I totally get it. So now everybody in my family is fat. So it's very easy to gain size for me. But staying lean, it's always a nightmare. Yeah. Staying lean, getting lean, staying lean. I have to leverage every angle and do 2 hours of cardio to get it done.
2 hours a day?
If I want to be really shredded, just 2 hours, no excuses.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't have time for that, man. It's. I'd rather.
Who has time for that?
Yeah, try to do consultations. Yeah, I was always fucked. Like when I was 6% body fat, it's 2 hours of cardio. Even with the mitochondrial support, every at one point I just get stuck. My body adapts metabolic wise. Doesn't matter how much fatigue management I do. I just need the 2 hours of cardio to really get shredded. So that's why I'm just comfortable at 8 to 10. It's better for mood.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my bad news for my career. So I looked at the calf. I'm like, what the? Where's my? Normally you have like a chunk of meat there. You know, you have like these two calves, and it looks silly, and you walk, and it's touching, and then it wasn't touching for a while. So, but it was like, okay, I did surgery. My legs are a little bit smaller, and now I'm trying to get back to the previous size. And I'm like, what? One side is just gone.
It's weird.
It's a shame. So what am I going to do? Synthol, GHK copper, or stop training calves altogether so the right side can catch up. And it's the right side that had the leg injury, the breakage. That calf is freaky big still.
Inject silicone caulking in there.
Yeah, EMAA.
Don't do that.
Yeah. Or deal with what is his name? Flex Wheeler did. Just jam needles in there until you get scar tissue. Oh, you look at his calves. Or he has got one calf now, but yeah, he had to get one lower leg removed. Yeah. So so that I don't think there's a solution for, because Ian Verrier didn't find a solution. I talked with Wesley Vissers about this. He couldn't really find a solution. You lose some electro stimulation on that area. And what is this? The other guy, Dennis Wolf, never got it fixed. His calves just disappeared at one point. You know, so well, career over. And I like to wear shorts. That makes it even more painful. Oh well, maybe do the high the compression socks to kind of hide it, or put a tattoo over it. Yeah,
tattoo a calf on.
Yeah, tattoo a calf on. Yeah, just make it look like the skin is ripped off.
Shading.
Yeah. Make sure like the skin ripped off, so you see like the muscle underneath, and then make it extra striated. So even though there's no muscle there, you still see striations. Ugh, shit, man. Yeah, so I did my gyno surgery, and I can't even get on stage because I have no calf on one side. Maybe I did need to do side poses to hide it all the time. The good news is that we finally found the Trenbolone insert. I'll share that on screen. So talking about Trenbolone. So the Parabolan insert is finally fully translated. First, we got this front page. This is the translation using the same setup as the insert. Anthony sent it to me, one of the avid steroid collectors. So you had a box of Parabolan with a used ampule, obviously not an unopened. That would have been worth a fuckload of money if you had an unopened ampule of Parabolan. I'm sure somebody out there would have bought it from him and offered him copious amounts of money just to give it a try. So basically, this is all known, right? We know that it contained hexahydrobenzocarbonate Trenbolone at 76 milligrams, yielding net 50 milligrams Trenbolone base, benzoyl alcohol, pharmaceutical grade ethyl alcohol, and neutralized arachids oil, which is inflammatory in some people. And it was prescribed in elderly patients with cachexia, states of undernutrition following major surgical interventions, extensive burns, bed sores, and in treatment of senile or iatrogic osteoporosis. Contraindications, pubertal subjects and young women, or women who are breastfeeding, pregnant women, or women who are likely to become pregnant. So all those studies performed that you...
they tested it first to make sure that it would kill the fetus. It would kill the fetus.
Fuck, man, I would love to read those studies, though.
Let me see if I can find them. I can send them to you.
Oh, you actually have access to those studies now?
Yeah, I have access to them. They're all watermarked and stuff. You can't really put them on the screen.
I won't show them up, but I would like to summarize it because that's what I do with the deep dives.
Yeah, you can summarize them. I just don't think you should place them on the screen.
No, I won't post them. No, because it's. But if I could read them and summarize them, because again, dude, there's no human studies available. Zero. So even if you have a little bit of an indication, even if it's in pregnant women, if I could read and summarize them and make a video about it, it would be so fucking beneficial. Like this video about the insert, it did 10,000 views. People are like, why did you make a video about the insert when there's no information? So, well, people want to know, man. So let's see, contraindications, also prostatic hypertrophy, prostate carcinoma, obviously, hepatic insufficiency. And apparently there's one study that looked into the hepatic stress of Trenbolone in humans on case reports. That's in the, was the Anabolic to Androgenic Steroids of the Pharmacology from Charles D. Cockakean. It's a very old book. Okay, the injections, right? 1 ampule every 15 days for the first 3 months. For the first month, start of the month, middle of the month, end of the month, and then another injection every month for another 3 injections. So 6 ampules Parabolan over 4 months. Don't use under the age of 15. And good luck, TikTokers. And then this is the back. And there's literally nothing there. There's nothing there. This medicine is an active product. Keep out of the reach of children. No shit. Use medicines prescribed as your doctor tells you. Well, nobody's going to prescribe Trenbolone anymore. And the description of Trenbolone is very low dosages. Only me and Dean would be crazy enough to use those dosages. And this is it. This is all. Your pharmacist knows medicines. It's not about taking a lot of medicines. I can't agree with that. It's about taking the medicines you need. So I was looking forward to this so much, and this is all we got. No references, no citations. Here's what's on the box. Composition again, So it was kind of anticlimactic, I would say. A little bit disappointing, but I'm still happy that somebody kept the medical insert and scanned it and sent it to me, and then I used Perplexity and ChatGPT to kind of translate it. I had the front page translated already with a former client of me, Noor, who lives in France. He translated for me at the front page. But yeah, so the Elusive back page was found. And I asked him for if he has more memorabilia, so maybe the Masteron medical insert or the old Syntax Anadrol insert, right? So I would like to put all those inserts online just for like completelets for the fitness industry, like Essiclean, if somebody has that. I would love to get that online. Oh. I found the insert for Primabol and S tablets. Those I got online. So yeah, if anybody has those hidden away somewhere or animal studies, I found a patent for drostanolone.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a video on this, and it might actually shows that it's anabolic.
Like we had some suspicion anyway from discussing about it, but that's...
Yeah. So I found some patent from 1978 where drostanolone might show anabolism in an animal model that is regurgitated by the Masteron junkies. So yeah, this animal model showed that it actually was more potent than Trenbolone. So I found that patent finally. Nobody was able to find it for me, but I finally found it myself. So I have to go through all 200 pages, and then I'll make a video about it. And then maybe I can reassess my conclusion that if you identify as a cow, which some people look like cows, then maybe Masteron can be anabolic at a low dose. Of course, like if you compare the Trenbolone cattle pellets to the anabolic response after castration, it's quite dramatic. And the muscle that they gain is very dramatic. But at those dosages, even if you extrapolate to the human equivalent dose, you don't observe that in humans at all, unless you maybe castrate yourself.
I think there's two things we're missing. One, although similar to humans, they have more androgen receptor density than the average human, right? So you have that. Mm-hmm. And also, when do they start the Trenbolone dosing? It's at day 3 of life. So not that you should start with your 3-day-old child, Steve, but there's much more growth potential right there because of the stem cells. So it's not, once you've already reached adulthood, you start Tren at 30 years old. Well, your growth potential is much more reduced than a 3-day-old cow.
Yeah, and you're already on testosterone base, which, Dean, what does testosterone superphysiological levels do to your stem cells?
Blocks half of them from infiltrating into your body. That's what we learned about the liver. Yeah, so
but that's why when you do stem cell treatment in South America, they all tell you, come off the juice.
And that's even relatively speaking, like what I'm always talking about, that with 125 tests, if your testosterone level is 800 nanograms per deciliter and your natural level genetically when you were a teenager, you had hypogonadism in your 20s, and you're at 300, 800 is still super physiological for where you developed genetically, naturally. So even then, you can't cheat yourself and thinking, I am still in a physiological range or super physiological by being like 3 times what your natural level was. So that's still going to have effects onto your stem cell repair and infiltration.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why it's okay to kind of come down to a physiological dose or come off completely. Maybe just to restore that stem cell effect, and you know, maybe remove the toxins that build up, because I think your detoxification processes get upregulated just like your anabolic processes, and maybe at one point it just cancels itself out when you've been running high gear, because nobody can run over a gram indefinitely. I mean, 500 tests, okay, but at one point you get diminishing returns and you actually go backwards. That's what I'm starting to notice now. Just even on 600 tests after 3 months, you're like, you know what? I think I'm getting some diminishing returns. It's time to come back again, you know?
I mean, Kurt had something that we discussed offline that sort of ties in with this, with the liver, of what you sort of observe, or Kurt brought up. I wasn't even aware of it, with oral steroids and the increased production of creatine, and that you're utilizing the 3 amino acids, arginine, glycine, and then methionine is the third one. I had to look them up before we went online. And then you've got glutathione.
That's why our 3 of us come on a podcast, man. It's the only place we can still learn something new.
That's it. I mean, and then glutathione, I know off by heart, with glycine, cysteine, and glutamic acid. That if you've got liver problems, you may be taken away from your amino acid pool to rebuild or recycle glutathione. But like Kurt said, with the oral steroids, you could be pulling glycine and methionine away from muscle protein synthesis, based on upregulation of creatine production.
Yeah. So the background, because people probably want to know what the background is, it's why certain oral steroids are going to produce much more strength gains, like immediately, versus an injectable would produce more size gains, muscle gains, even if the anabolic rating, and I know anabolic rating is not everything, but even if the rating is very skewed, right? Like Parabolan has a trash anabolic rating, and you know, Winstrol and Anavar have very high, but yet they don't really produce any tissue in men. And that's because of the route, right? When it's 17 alpha alkylate, it goes to the liver. It's going to take those 3 amino acids and commit them to creatine phosphate, which is going to make you immediately stronger. Versus when you inject something like Parabolan, it's not going directly through the liver immediately. So it's going to commit those same amino acids as part of the protein synthesis process and lay on tissue, right? And because the confusing part before I looked into it was, well, why would Anavar cause strength gains, right? Everyone reports they get stronger in Anavar. It doesn't have a ton of non-genomic effects. It's really, that's really like SARM. It really just works through the AR. Where are those strength gains coming from? And it doesn't seem to be a placebo. But that's the reason why. So it's basically upping your creatine production immediately, versus, you know, you don't get that same effect. That's one of the reasons why Parabolan might not produce crazy strength gains. I don't think anyone really gets a ton stronger on Primo or Nandrolone.
No, I mean, you get
stronger than you are natural, but
you get more androgenic effects, obviously, but it seems to be over time. So after 6 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks,
but not like Primo, in a day or two.
No, Anadrol, Anavar, and some of the other oral steroids, you're like, oh, I took it and I immediately get stronger.
Right, but then Helotest and you know, Anadrol and those that are stronger, they also have crazy non-genomic effects that are going to produce other nerve stuff.
So if these oral steroids produce more creatine, they don't, or creatine phosphate, right? So your energy levels and your strength goes up. Fullness comes with that. The intramuscular water retention can be explained that way. But unlike with creatine supplementation, it doesn't make you hold any water. So is this why naturals get better results with creatine than non-naturals? Because non-naturals increase their creatine phosphate production by taking oral steroids?
Possibly.
Because I noticed, like, I took creatine in the past as a natural. You get a dramatic effect. And then when you take creatine as a steroid user, you're like, all I get is water retention.
Yeah,
maybe one extra rep.
You're already producing a ton more, and all steroids are going to cause ramping up of creatine, right? Testosterone does that too.
Yeah.
So it not necessarily anything wrong with creatine supplementation in enhanced athletes, because it still has other effects that are healthy.
Right.
But might not be needed, at least for muscle gain. It's not going to add anything to your muscle gain that you're not going to get. I mean, the part of the reason in naturals it's going to cause size gains is because it can increase your strength. The stronger you get, the more weight you can lift, the more, mechanical tension you can.
Yeah, and some intramuscular water retention, obviously, which is good for leverage, and that makes you stronger to a certain extent. And you don't produce that much creatine naturally on your natural testosterone levels.
When the average person doesn't eat enough, with the average American at least, their natural creatine levels are pretty low, right? People aren't eating as much meat as they once did.
Yeah.
So
you got to supplement that in.
Yeah. So that kind of explains why Anavar makes you stronger.
So some of these orals shift protein synthesis from laying on tissue to protein synthesis that is used for energy, and that makes you stronger acutely. So what can we do to optimize this process? Because I was told that all steroids potentiate the same amount of protein synthesis.
Because that in and of itself isn't just the only. It's like everyone gets hung up on these like silly little one thing, like these one details, right? Like protein synthesis.
Like protein synthesis is all the same. Like there's only one kind of protein.
That's the only thing that stops growth. Unfortunately, it's not the only thing that stops growth. Right. It's I mean, and I know exactly what you're talking about, which
Scott Stevenson did an excellent video on Think Big. I'll link it down below if you don't forget, where he analyzed all of the studies regarding a dose response curve. And it's so different. Of course, it's all coming from different studies. Yeah, Scott Stevenson is an excellent researcher, and he got upset. He said, "You know what? I'm going to show you guys." And you see, it's like literally completely different all over the place.
When you can see with a stronger drug, right? The Trenbolone is stronger than testosterone, but it doesn't necessarily like it's going to bind to the androgen receptor, at least 3 times as firmly as testosterone, but it's not necessarily gaining 3 times as much muscle mass. That's not necessarily a fault of the drug. There's other limiting factors there. You can't just grow and grow and grow and grow endlessly. The human body has a ton of stops there to prevent that from occurring.
Yeah, and of course, if you keep growing, then at one point you're going to pop, whether that's your organs or something else.
Well, in nature, food wasn't abundant. Why would your body just let you just ramp up muscle mass for no reason?
Yeah,
beyond what's needed.
Even the gorillas and the lions, they cap out at one point. So
most animals, that's it. That's it. They hit their point. They can't get any bigger.
Yeah. So where were we? The creatine. So Kurt, can you explain it a little bit more for the audience to understand? Like, what would be a limiting factor of taking oral steroids that produce more creatine monophosphate compared to steroids that produce more protein synthesis, like collagen, for example? Like, what would be the difference, and how can we get some sort of synergy between? Because, of course, a lot of people are going to be upset. Yeah, I take Anavar, and that's why I'm not getting any size, right? This is the conclusion that the audience is going to draw.
Well, I mean, there's still going to be some level of size that comes from a drug like that. It's just not going to be as much as something that is injected. Right. I mean, you could leverage both, right? Take Primo and an oral if you want, right? To get some level of both. Or you could use a slightly more androgenic steroid or one that produces more strength gains that you would get the best of both worlds. It doesn't mean you have to use Anavar.
If you take an injectable, would it be wise to supplement with glycine and methionine coming from collagen supplements?
Wouldn't it be easier just to take creatine?
Yeah, obviously, but the creatine is of course being produced with the oral steroids, right?
Oh, you're saying if you took orals to then supplement with the precursors to creatine? No, you're saying.
So with the orals, some of the orals would produce more creatine, monophosphate, right? So you would take some creatine to help with that process. And the injectables, you would lay more tissue on with as glycine and methionine as a base backbone. So you would take collagen supplements or something collagen containing, like a good fucking steak.
You could, but I think then it goes back to just the way the human body works, right? When you just all protein, doesn't matter where it necessarily is coming from, right? It gets cleaved apart into di and tripeptides, and then it gets applied to wherever the body needs it, right? It's one of the reasons why, like, collagen protein per se is not going to go to collagen production.
No. You just create an environment where everything is equally available.
That's why, it was a brilliant idea to sell collagen supplements, right? People are like, oh, it makes your skin nicer. Most likely it doesn't. 25% of the amino acids in the human body are already as collagen peptides. Right. Whey protein would produce just as much as taking collagen supplement, perhaps more because of the leucine content.
All right. Yeah. From the protein synthesis.
Perhaps,
Yeah.
I mean, depends, right? Again, there's limits there. Protein synthesis, I think, is again overrated. Most of the studies are showing whole body and not intramuscular, right? Because food doesn't, and that's one of the reasons why food itself is not ramping up growth on its own unless you're deficient in those things.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can drink all the way, so you can sit on a couch, not exercise, no drugs, drink all the whey protein in the world, you're not going to grow. Just because your mTOR is ramped up all the time doesn't mean anything. It's not doing anything.
Yeah, and it's the same as supplementing with BCAAs or EAs and then glycine and methionine with every single meal. I tried that already. That doesn't make a difference.
And there's a cap too, and like it's not that it doesn't get used, right? Unused, your body will use everything it's given. If it's not, it's called diarrhea. That's undigested food. Like you absorb everything, right, except some level of fiber. But it can only apply so much to muscle, right? In a natural, I don't know what actually the drug using person it would be, because it probably depends on the drugs and the amount of drugs and their genetics. But in a natural person, what 10% of amino acids are applied to muscle, give or take? Is that right, Dean?
Yeah.
It's low. It's low. It's not anywhere near what people think. If they get 50 grams in a meal, they're not getting 50 grams in their muscles.
No.
No.
Their body has a lot more things that it deems more important than muscle, that it's going to apply that stuff to. Like
all these peptides and
ATP.
Yeah, peptides, enzymes, basically all the machinery is all made out of
Insulin.
Proteins. Yeah, it's all proteins, it's all amino acids folded in certain ways. So that's where most of the food goes. It goes to the machinery, not the tissue that is actually there.
Right, you have splenic extraction that increases with age. That's one of the reasons why sarcopenia occurs. Right, lower hormones, lower food intake as people get older, they eat less. Right, and then the protein goes down. And they've a higher numbers, a much larger amount of splenic extraction. So like a little kid, the body's much more efficient at applying the amino acids where it needs to go, versus when you get old, your spleen is a hog. It pulls out the amino acids out of your gut because it's using that as fuel.
Right.
To power itself.
Yeah, to keep you alive at the expense of muscle mass.
Yeah.
That's why building a good amount of tissue is good for longevity, because you extend that process of sarcopenia later on in life. Or you take TRT and you prevent it.
That too.
That helps. That helps. Yeah, so it's very interesting that you told us that some of these oral steroids might shift, amino acid utilization for energy production. And that's why you get such an acute effect, because your creatine monophosphate concentrations are just going higher. Does that also mean that oral steroids could increase your creatinine levels?
Which we see, right? But that was probably more previously thought as like a liver stress issue. Perhaps it's not just liver stress, right?
Oh, it's just different.
Yeah, and then but the point is, it also explains why something like Winstrol, which has a 320 or something anabolic rating, which on paper should be 3 times as strong as test. It's just not. I don't know anyone who's taking Winstrol to grow per se.
No, it seems to be the cosmetic enhancing drug, and of course through the
angio. Different.
Yeah, women, obviously. Or maybe get androgen anabolism in the wrong places.
Well, and women are going to respond, estimate 8 times stronger to a dose than a man would respond, just based on their natural. It goes back to what you talk about baseline, like where you grew, like what your morphology is, where you grew naturally, right? Their androgen level is a lot less. So they'll respond to a 10 milligrams of Anavar much more so than a man would respond to 10 milligrams of Anavar.
Yeah, and their serum testosterone levels are maybe 50, 70 at maximum,
that's why,
which is
TRT
10 times less.
3.5 milligrams a test. You're not giving them, they don't need huge amounts of it.
No. It does do wonders, though, for women, TRT, after a certain age. I see a lot of women on TRT now, and that is magic for them as well.
Yeah,
interesting.
We're working on, I won't, because it doesn't necessarily apply to bodybuilding, but we're working on something too where, progesterone is produced backdoor through DHT as well. So it's one of the fail-safes in the body. With women on hormone replacement therapy, right, you're not supposed to give estrogen without progesterone generally, unless there's something else, because you don't want to become estrogen dominant. But when a lot of times they'll add testosterone to that mix as well, and you'll see the progesterone go up. We're going to see if we remove the progesterone, if there's enough backdoor conversion that's still occurring, just to eliminate even giving the progesterone. Because you might just, once you increase testosterone, you might just produce enough on its own.
Right, then because you have that backdoor pathway. It goes vice versa.
Yeah, same with allopregnanolone, right? So you produce allopregnanolone from testosterone through 5-alpha reduces to DHT, and then a 3-alpha diol will become alpha pregnenolone. So in theory, if someone is on TRT, they don't necessarily need to, supplement with pregnenolone to get that same neurosteroid sexual benefit, right? Because allopregnenolone and DHT seem to be the largest drivers of sexual behavior in men.
Yeah.
Not estrogen per se. Estrogen has a slight role there and with sperm production, but it seems more of those two things, right? A lot of time, I think you guys talked about it last time, that the lack of the pregnenolone can cause like sexual issues, even if the other hormones all look fine.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean
it could be a mitochondrial issue. So you have
Like that
pregnenolone
too.
being produced in the mitochondria, and then of course, if your pregnenolone levels are low, which is hard to test, then everything.
There's a test. No, there's a test now. LabCorp has a test in the United States for allopregnenolone.
Yeah, for allopregnenolone, but the regular pregnenolone,
That's
it's not very accurate.
In the
yeah.
it might not be accurate, but this is a standard.
It's not very accurate. Yeah, from all the doctors that I talked to, it said it's probably the least accurate test because it fluctuates so much, and even with DHEA or pregnenolone sulfate, it's not that accurate. So that's why we usually check DHEA sulfate as an indicator, and progesterone levels to see what is going on downstream.
Yep.
Dean, I know you want to jump in.
No, I was just saying the point that Kurt brought up, obviously then with the creatine turnover, if you've got less glycine being pulled into creatine production, less glycine is going to affect your glutathiones. You're going to get less glutathione. You're going to have less glycine as a potentiator of its own receptor in the brain, and GABA as well. So then you might start to see anxiety issues. And
oh, fuck.
So
that makes so much sense now.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking in my head. And then the other side of it, then it's glycine. The other amino acids in the chain is methionine. Methionine is a driver of methylation, of SAM-E production, S-adenosyl methionine. And then the kicker that comes from that then is S-adenosyl methionine becomes SAW when it's reduced. So it gives off the methyl group for methylation into your DNA. And it becomes homocysteine. So you might start seeing issues of homocysteine and cardiovascular issues. The methionine problem then could play over into gene transcription, where you then start to see potential issues coming from non-responders and hyper-responders, depending on what happens with methylation of the genes themselves, and then the acetylation with the histones of how your DNA unravels itself to open out the sequences to be read. So yeah, that was really interesting what Kurt brought up before we came on, where my head was just doing its usual of what if this and this and this and this.
It does make sense though, because if you're shifting these amino acids for energy production and you're taking away from methylation and relaxation, it could explain why a lot of side effects manifest with longer term oral steroid use. And I'm not even sure if then supplementing with these particular amino acids would circumvent that.
Not necessarily. And the body doesn't absorb it doesn't like the free form amino acids. Right?
No.
It likes things that are bound. So
so
who knows what
better
it's actually doing with them.
But it could also explain that people who eat better have less of these side effects because they do get a more broader amino acid profile.
Yeah, go figure. Food matters.
And then the other thing, coming back to our good friend, like the bile flow and the appetite that we covered on one of the old episodes, we always focus on UDCA and TUDCA as the bile salts. You do have glycine conjugates of bile acids as well. So now your bile is being affected, which affects your appetite and your intestine that we talked about. If you want to improve appetite with orals, you want to improve bile flow and fat transport.
Yeah, so GC1 Sobetirome upregulates cytochrome P457A1 enzymes, which convert C4. It's like C4 is a precursor for bile acids, and that then upregulates just like thyroid hormones. But it does that in, based on the animal models in a much higher capacity than T3. So GC1 might actually help with detoxification and stool motility by increasing bile acid synthesis, unless you combine that with ketoconazole, which inhibits CYP7A1 and thus lowers bile acid production, or anastrozole, which inhibits CYP27A1, which also provides precursors for bile acid synthesis. This is why I don't like anastrozole over aromasin for estrogen management, because you see that at the end when people megadose anastrozole, right, for bodybuilding contests, they get constipated.
Yep.
And it's because they don't produce any bile acids anymore.
When also estrogen itself has effects on bile. So like if I crush my estrogen before a show, even no matter how lean you are, I have trouble contracting my abs, right? My stomach will start to distend. And that could also be part of the bubble gut that you saw 20 years ago in bodybuilding.
Yeah,
right? When
shit gets left behind. Yeah.
Yeah. So I typically
Cytidrin was one of the
like
culprits.
low, but not crushed, right? So like 10 to 15 is probably good to get on stage versus 0.
Yeah.
Right. Because and that was discovered in postmenopausal women. That's why their stomach starts to distend.
Yeah, and it's part of that is bile acid secretion that's impaired. And of course, your entire cocktail, especially if you're on contest prep, GC1 might be able to prevent that to a certain extent. But it will be better to supplement with a little bit of ox bile, TUDCA, and just have a good amount of healthy fats in your diet, which also lubricate your stool. Which then later on you're like, I got to go low fat to get extra lean, and so it's a bit of a balancing act. But hey, man, it's like a good shit in the morning. I think it solves a lot of problems already. At least you get off.
It's better than fasted cardio.
Yeah, that's true. You lose more weight. You have a good shit. The fasted cardio.
Better way to start your day too than go out for a run.
Yeah, coffee and a good shit, and then you can start. Yeah, what more do you want, man?
Even
so funny how we discover all these.
Sweating.
4 pounds, holy shit! After going to the US, good shit is definitely 4 pounds. Yeah, all that cheesecake, holy moly! So yeah, it's interesting how all these little things start to make sense. As you guys discover stuff and I discover stuff, and you see all this interconnection. That's why this podcast is so great, because you find all these metabolic pathways that finally get discovered.
When no one looks into it, no one cares.
No,
pharmaceutical companies don't care.
Well, you need to read a lot of studies and understand biochemistry, and like you guys understand so much about this chemical composition, which I don't understand. So you put those 3 months together, you discover something new every podcast. I mean, these last 12 podcasts have been eye-opening to me, and I spend like 60 hours a week reading fucking studies. So it's it's great.
Well, it's great too because we all complement each other with that stuff, right? Like one throws an idea out and the other one complete it. Like I use Dean a lot for that stuff, like with the creatine stuff. That's more his world, not mine. Like I might have learned it. I don't remember half that stuff, but like you look at that stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Right. Like mine kind of stops at the androgens.
I mean, even to go back to what you were talking about, proteins being incorporated into muscle tissue, like hair, your nails, keratin synthesis, that can be an insight into how well you're creating or utilizing amino acids towards protein synthesis for your body's own requirements. So, like if you're trying to build muscle, but you have genetically evolved to grow hair and grow nails, your body's going to use the amino acids to build these natural proteins that it creates day to day, than putting those amino acids into your muscle. So I think, broadly speaking, you can almost assess how well protein metabolism is in your body by looking at your hair and skin or nail health. How well are your nails and hair growing?
Yeah. Besides the androgenic alopecia that occurs, obviously. Yeah, but you can usually tell like the guys that have like better skin and like always complain about, having to trim their hair, that they do seem a little bit more anabolic than average. But is that food or,
Well, I mean, if you're on GH for long periods of time, I've been on growth hormone now for 3 years. My nails are incredibly thick.
Yeah.
And all my flat bones grew as well. My wife is saying things about my hands.
I mean, I like we thought, like my hair grows really quick, but my hair grows everywhere. Like, if I don't shave, I'm a hairy gorilla.
That's probably from Tren too. Use Tren once and it goes everywhere.
But I think like, so the food, like I've been on a diet since I was like maybe 15, 16 years old, because I was very interested in nutrition. Before I ever touched steroids, I was like making my own meals, right? And then I had that motorcycle accident when I was 22, 23 years old. And I was eating a boatload of protein and just not missing meals, even here in Thailand when I had that motorcycle accident. And so I had road rash, obviously, on my arms. They put that gauze on there. And then my skin was recovering through the gauze in a day. So that when they took it off to replace it, obviously, for infection purposes, my skin was already in there. And that was without steroids. So I do think you can upregulate this protein synthesis just by frequent eating protein meals. Because at one point I had to use some sort of special gauze with a little bit of fat on there to remove it every day because my skin was really growing in that so fast. By the time I was home, a week later, it was already closed. It's insane. So I think if you keep feeding the body with adequate amounts of protein and you do that for a longer period of time, I do think that it increases protein synthesis to such an extent that the recovery of little wounds is just twice as fast as regular people. And that's why I have no scars either. Like there's no scars. With normal people, they would be wrecked for life.
That's what I was saying about mTOR. It's not that it doesn't ramp up protein synthesis, it's just whole body. It's not specifically in the muscle.
Yeah, I lost a lot of size when I obviously had the motorcycle accident, like in 2 weeks, because all the protein was being utilized to recover from that accident.
Well, if you're natural, you were natural at the time? Mm-hmm. If you're natural at the time, as soon as mechanical tension isn't there, it starts in 4 to 8 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
You lift chest, 2 days later, the chest is atrophying. Mm-hmm. So that's normal. If you're bedridden for 2 weeks, you're going to lose
3 months, dude.
Much faster than it was previously thought. It occurs almost immediately.
Oh, even last time when I had this surgery. Yeah, so when I had this surgery on the gyno and the LASIK eye surgery and the leg surgery, that you just shrink by the day. You're like, what the fuck is going on? And I'm on all the gear. So even when you use gear, tension. Yeah, there's no mechanical tension. I didn't train for like 4 weeks, 6 weeks.
At space, even how fast do they lose? Astronauts lose muscle incredibly quickly.
Yeah, that's the last thing I would want to do if you're a bodybuilder. Weightlessness. Yeah, maybe go to Jupiter, get some extra gravity, and get more size that way. Imagine how big your calves would be on Jupiter.
Only one calf.
Yeah,
there's still a nerve there.
Yeah. Even with space, man. That's a good discussion there. I'm horrible with names, but the female astronaut that was stuck up in the space station, the change in her facial structure in the 10 or 11 months she was stuck in space, which would be like classical sort of calcium loss from the jaw, like what you'd see with someone virilized, and where the jaw becomes more square and more protruded. That when you're up in space with lack of mechanical tension on your body floating, is there, now this is a woman, is there a change in their sort of hormone profile to produce more testosterone to try and keep some level of muscle mass in space? Which is where we've seen.
Find a picture of that.
I was seeing it as a before and after, where they're showing her jaw structure completely changed in the 10 months.
What was her name?
Does their cholesterol get ramped up, astronauts?
I don't know. I've never looked at what affects.
Because I would think that would be a good sign to see what the body's trying to do, right? If it starts ramping up cholesterol, most likely it's trying to make hormones. This
was just something I seen where it was a before and after comparison talking about them coming back from space, and then it was like the physical changes, obviously, of what was observed with being there. The jawline completely changed, which would be classic of there it is there, very prominent jaw, the one on the right there.
This one, right?
Yeah, crazy. I mean,
look at this chin. She wasn't pretty to begin with, but this is some dramatic changes. Let's see if we can find some more. Wow. Before and after. Oh, they all pointing to her chin. Poor lady.
There's one there for just a normal before going into space as an astronaut. Or even there where her American flag behind her, you can see that one to the right.
This one,
yeah. Literally, you see a more feminine structure, to speak, and then the other one is like what you might see with a virilized woman with the bone mineral loss, and then deposition.
I'll have to collect all these pictures later on.
And deposition into the jaw.
This is a big difference. Yeah, look at this. Here before 2018, and this is later on.
Yeah,
that's insane. That's a different kind of look maxing. A lot of young boys would be after this more pronounced chin. They're clenching their jaws all night, all day, all night to get that, and then they start doing this. Look at this.
They just need to fund a trip into space and stay there for 10 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy, no? Crazy. Yeah, I would not want to go into space if there's no gym and no artificial gravity. So if there's a spinning space station with 1.1 Gs, I'm down. But zero gravity, no way, dude. No way. There's osteoporosis waiting to happen. That's crazy. All right, what else do we have topics on? Let me see. About the growth hormone changes in creatinine. So maybe we can show the blood work first. Let's see, where's share screen? Turn screen. So this is one of your clients, Kurt. So this is before growth hormone. You see cystatin C of 1.19, EGFR 68. And then this is after the GH. That's creatinine and cystatin C. Is this both before and after? Or after?
After.
This is after. Okay.
We haven't. I'm sorry. Before, while on the GH.
While on the GH. So this is before the GH?
No, he is on, let's say 3 milligrams of GH there during
So
that.
it's okay. So this both on GH, right? So
yes, we've removed the GH now to then reach. Yes, because that started to trend up, which had never. We have historical labs going back like almost 2 years, and it's never been elevated before. And he's not on anything else except low dose testosterone like TRT. So
so this creatinine is slightly elevated, but not super elevated for somebody who body builds. And I wouldn't worry about that. But this
it was just that it was starting to trend up for no reason. But this never even there.
Like this cystatin C being this high, that I would worry about. Or at least going up.
All those markers started to go up, and his EGFR went down. So his EGFR was a 106 previously, and that's 67.
Yeah, that's a big difference, man. That's a big difference. And then what he did, was add in the growth hormone at 3 milligrams. So that's
9 units,
9 IUs per day. Did he start from 0 to 9 IUs, or did he build it up slowly?
Build it up slow. So 3 and then 4 or 5, like up slow, and it didn't start to go until he hit about 3 milligrams or 9 units.
All right.
But again, he's someone that's incredibly healthy and takes very good care of himself. He's meticulous with his diet. He doesn't do recreational drugs. There was nothing else going on except that. So we were looking at. So one of the assumptions that the three of us discussed before was that possibly Biloxone 188, which is a polymer that's used as a filler or binder in the underground lab GH. Of course, subsequently, that no longer exists on search engines anymore.
Yeah, the weird thing, we tried to search for it before this episode, and we can't find anything on this compound. So we're not sure if that's. Yeah, so we're not sure if that's muted on Google now.
I used DuckDuckGo as well, and it wasn't there. There was a Wikipedia entry for it. There was Google results. It was a PubMed search. When you search PubMed, it's gone. It's off the internet for some reason. And it didn't seem to be the Biloxone 188 as a whole. It was like the quality of that Biloxone that was used.
Right.
The cheaper, more industrial grade Biloxone, when it was added, it seemed to cause kidney stress. That's at least what the studies showed.
Yeah. So that's a manufacturing issue over in China, right? Where obviously the generic GH market is using unpure ingredients to kind of stabilize the GH. So you really have to be careful now where you purchase your generics.
Yeah, well, that was the purpose of the Ceristin box. It was they're just because you see the opposite effect. You might see some creatinine go up a little bit with GH use. You don't see the other markers getting skewed. They should improve over time with GH.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's we're seeing the opposite with the underground stuff.
I mean,
in a dose-dependent manner, seems. Or a quality, like if possible, if it's really crappy quality stuff, you might see it at a low dose.
Yeah, I hear a lot more complaints now about low-dose GH coming out of China, just generic that are not branded, right? That are not part of like some reputable UGL that has been doing this for years, that has good connections. All these dodgy blue tops, yellow tops that people use, or some new brand that don't do the scrutinous third-party testing, or don't really know which of these peptide suppliers to source from. Yeah, that they get issues, man. Carpal tunnel and 3 IUs. I'm like, what the fuck, dude? What are you talking about?
You
You know,
shouldn't
or
have
just
to blow.
excessive water retention, edema on 2 IUs, 4 IUs. Yeah, if you take 10 IUs, a little bit of edema is to be expected. You might
It
lose
goes
a little bit
away.
of veins. Yeah, but it goes away with time, right? You might lose a little bit of veins, and then you take it out, and you're shredded as fuck. But you get the same level of edema as creatine supplementation, right? So it's not the end of the world. But yeah, I hear a lot more problems with like new brands of GH now, and I don't know if that's the tariffs or the lockdowns, which we should also discuss. The more scrutinous production things that they're trying to crack down on. But it seems that the quality is going down now over in China.
So I just sent you so I'm on 3 milligrams GH for over 3 years. I don't have any water retention. I sent you a picture in our group chat. You don't have to post it. It's just there's no water retention. I'm just saying
you always look good.
Any water retention that occurs is initial and it should go away. It shouldn't just be this constant level of water retention from growth hormone.
Man, fuck you, dude.
A tad more than
You look
without the
fucking
growth
good.
hormone, but
I wish I looked this good. I'm still fluffy as fuck. I'm working on it though.
This lightest I've been in 3 years. I have 201.
Hey man, below 200 pounds is not a man. Slow down.
I'm down almost 40 pounds.
I remember Aaron always told me, so you can't be below 90 kilos, otherwise we can't be friends with you. Like, fuck, man. So I desperately tried to keep over 90 kilos when I was off cycle. I was pretty lean, though.
I'm still 15 pounds over my classic cutoff.
Yeah, you don't want to do classic, man. It's we're bodybuilders at heart. I don't know how you squeeze in that class, Dean, but you do classic in PCA, right? So I think those weight limits are a little bit higher, or no?
They're a bit higher. I mean, for when I done MPC, I just about dropped into, I think it was 90.6 was my cutoff, which is 200 pounds. It's you've got no room to get excessively big as an open bodybuilder. If that's your route of going. So
what's your height? 5'9"?
Yeah, 5'9", 176.
Yeah.
So I think
he's a little bit taller than I am.
Yeah, I'm 5'7". So
yeah.
So I felt like class B, I think like tier 2 or whatever it is. So you have the top of the between 5'8" and 5'9", I think is the cutoff in the MPC rule for that 90 kilo cutoff.
Yeah, that's where I am. Yeah. And I was 90 kilos when I was natural or on HCG monotherapy. And I looked like a skeleton. So I was looking at some of the pictures and I was like, okay, I got a good X-frame, but it's zero muscle there, man. I don't know. This growth hormone is causing too much bone mineralization. Just makes you extra heavy.
For that.
Yeah. So maybe I need to shave off a little bit. Maybe take some ribs out.
I'll go to space.
You know? Yeah, go to space. What would go faster though? Like your bone mineral density or your skeletal muscle mass?
The whole thing, but then you grow the muscle back on a smaller frame, and then you do classic.
That's so I want to wait for classic. I go to space for a year.
I heard that's what Chris Bumstead does. He just spends the off season in space. That way he can make weight.
You can afford it. I'm sure you can afford it.
I didn't get that from him. That was speculation.
I wonder where classic is going to go now that Mike Sommerfeld is kind of in the lead. I mean, it's such a different physique. That's like it's bodybuilding. Mike Sommerfeld is a bodybuilder, but he's got those classic lines. I mean, if you take the face away, it looks very close to Dorian Yates.
I don't know how he's so big at that weight. Again, he must have a super small frame.
Yes, tiny waist. He's a tiny waist, and he knows how to diet with Neil Hill. So he wanted to go to Bile and he wanted to come to Thailand. And I told him, "Don't do it, man. Why sacrifice your placings? If you come here, you have way too much fun." Yeah, I told him, said, just lock yourself somewhere in Dubai or Mexico where you have access to all the stuff. Like here in Thailand, I have access to everything also. But I told him, said, "There's too much distractions here. You'll go nuts." It's so hopefully he can win the Mr. Olympia, and then when he retires, he can come to Thailand or Bali and enjoy himself. Because 4 or 5 years at the Olympia stage, I think then it's time to throw in the towel. This guy lives out of Airbnbs. Can you believe it? He looks like that. He has no home. He lives out of Airbnbs, goes to Mexico for 6 months and then 4 months in Dubai and travels all over the place. It's insane.
Wow.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do that, man. I go to Bali, I get fat and sloppy and,
Yeah, then again, if you could do that.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's the nomadic life. And then look like that. It's not many people can do that.
No, Well, not many
No.
people could do that no matter what the environment was. So
I wouldn't be able to look like that even if I lock myself
that's
down
what I'm saying. It
in a
doesn't matter
home
what.
gym with a kitchen, you know, and a posing room. No way, I wouldn't be able to do it. Did you guys hear anything more about China and the raw situation? Like Masteron, Parabolan is now completely gone everywhere. All the underground labs, they don't have it.
There's some trickling into the United States in smaller. I guess they don't. It's looked at differently, I guess, depending on the size of the container or whatever.
Okay. Because I heard that production is just very, very low at the moment.
So Deca supposedly is not being produced. Why Deca? I don't know. Deca specifically, not MPP. Mast E, not Mast P, is gone. Anavar supposedly as well gone.
Yeah.
Mast E might not be. I think people are speculating because Americans use Mast D now. It's trendy, so they just cut that out. There's some polymorphisms when Masteron's made. I don't know if you've seen this, Dean. There's like different isomers of drostanolone that occur during the recrystallization process. Carbon-13 folds strangely, and so the molecule is different. So it's, even though it tests as drostanolone, it's different. There's a hydrogen-hydrogen interaction. It's possible that during the enanthate process, when they add that it causes that. It might be much more difficult to make. Perhaps it requires more reducing or something. Because when it's made, I don't know if you've ever seen Mast E made versus Mast P. When Mast E is made, it turns jet black. It almost looks like
you told us.
thin, it looks like thin motor oil. Versus Mast P is like this really light yellow, like a beer, and Mast E next to it is black in the container. And then when it's filtered, a lot of times the black goes away. Right? You've never seen black Mast E in a bottle. But it's when it's cleaned up for processing, it goes away. So there's something else occurring. It's possible that they've tried to cheapen the process and it didn't work, or I'm just speculating on a chemistry point of view. I don't know why Mast.
Could this isoform explain why some people get no estrogen suppression on Masteron and some people do?
Could be different. Yeah, I can send you stuff on it if you want to read about it.
Please, yeah, interesting. So yeah, it seems that like all the undergrad labs that I talked to that are reputable, they say that its sourcing is really a problem, and then they're looking in India, and none of them trust India producing for the raws. None of them. They say, "Fuck, that's the last resort." You know, I'd rather not make anything than get my fucking raws from India. That's hilarious.
The UK has pretty much dried up. And,
yeah. So remember, guys, when we told you to stock up,
it took 5 months.
It will never go away.
It took 5 months, but it's I had a few consults where the question was proposed surrounding Mast because Primo's next to impossible, and like you said with Primobolan, like even Rimobolan, there's a lot of fakes and.
It's gone now. It's not being produced anymore.
The wound down of production, you're left with limited choice. So we might see a renaissance of Test and Deca come back from the 80s.
Yeah, maybe Boldenone is making a comeback. You know, we want some aromatase inhibiting effects. We want some estrogen lowering effects, and still fullness and roundness and cosmetic benefits. So Test and Boldenone is we're just going to discount all these studies on kidney problems. You know. Then again, these kidney studies have never been reproduced in other steroids. So Boldenone is kidney toxic. Lack of evidence in the other steroids doesn't mean that those steroids are not kidney toxic. It's just never been studied, guys.
Yeah. I mean, like what Kurt said, with the creatinine of the client that we looked at the bloods. Creatinine, if you're looking at bloods like what you said, it's relatively a useless marker. Not to put anything down on it, but it's increased with creatine metabolism, and like we see with the oral steroids, potentially you're increasing creatine phosphate, which creates creatinine. When you see an increase in creatinine, the way I always view it is what is the baseline change. So like if that guy's creatinine was 1.3 and say that is with same standard diet, same standard cycle, same supplementation, creatine, protein powders, whatever. And then he goes and gets blood work. And that baseline was, say, 1.01, and now it's at 1.3. Well, that's a big jump.
It was a big
it's
jump
30.
from where it was baseline.
You have to go by that big jump is telling you something. Whereas if you have raised creatinine and say it's 1.2, and then the next set of bloods was 1.22, but you're on creatine, you have excessive muscle mass, etc.
You got stronger, you put on some size, then it's what happened to my blood work. Usually jumps up like a couple points.
And that's why
but you also get stronger.
With the calculation of EGF4, the Croxford gout, as far as I remember, is what the normal. It really doesn't take into account muscle mass. It's just looking at a standardized linear excretion of creatinine. That's why it's used. So in a normal individual, they sort of have a known rate of clearance of creatinine should be linear, basically. But it's not as simple when you have someone who has, 80 kilos of muscle mass on their frame and they're training excessively the day before, raising creatine kinase and creatine phosphate turnover and everything else. That's where the cystatin C becomes more important. And then looking at DGF4 using creatinine and cystatin C together. And it might be useful. You can put up on the screen, you can easily search for it. Creatinine is a tiny molecule. Cystatin C is a big giant protein. You put them side by side, like pictorially. There's a huge difference between the structures that when you're measuring a small molecule's clearance and then a big protein that's part of the kidney in the bloodstream.
It's only 113 Daltons. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very small creatinine. You look at cystatin C, it's huge. You put the two of them side by side, like I said, you get an understanding of why creatinine versus cystatin C. If your cystatin C is raised, that is what you need to really action quickly. Yes. And then you can do calculations, like there's several websites that will take into account your, as much as I hate it, your BMI will give a relative understanding of how much muscle mass is on your frame relative to your height. So you can then work out what's the kidney filtration based off that. And it's more important to do that type of calculation because if you went to a hospital and you were given an intravenous drug, they'd do this more advanced calculation because they want to be sure of drug clearance rates based on your actual kidney health. Yeah.
So all the pictures that I find are purchase pictures from stock image websites. So I'll overlay that here if I don't forget.
So it's interesting.
But it's a big difference.
It's huge.
Let me see what the molecular weight is of cystatin C. So let's see, molecular weight. 13 kilodaltons. So that's 113 daltons of creatinine versus 1,300 or 13,000. Yeah, that's a big difference, right? So, single polypeptide chain of 120 amino acids. It's like growth hormone.
It's massive. And what you're looking with cystatin C is how much of it is being released from the kidneys into your bloodstream as a reflection of kidney damage. Right. And then the other thing, what you want to look at with bloods towards kidney health is where has albumin changed? If albumin drops, you're losing it through the kidneys as well. So serum.
Yeah, you can check that with the urinalysis on your protein, right? You have a protein 1 or trace +1, +2, +3, and you can find those ranges of how much albumin is in your urine, how many milligrams per liter. And then you need to get alarmed. And then otherwise you do a 24-hour urine collection test where you compare your serum creatinine and serum cystatin C to your urinary creatinine and cystatin C. And then many times the real GFR, so without the E stands for estimated, the true glomerular filtration rate is in the hundreds. It's like 125. I've done these 24-hour urine collection tests so many times, and then your EGFR on blood work is like 40. You're like, fuck, I'm going to die. And then you do it a 24-hour urine collection test, and then it's 127. You're like, oh, okay. It's totally fine then. My cystatin C has never been out of range, but creatinine is pretty high. It's genetics. Have you guys ever noticed with clients that are on a high carbohydrate diet that their creatinine levels are generally lower than guys that follow a carnivore or ketogenic or more high carb or high protein diet with less?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
You're using less protein as energy.
Exactly. Yeah. So my creatinine is usually a little bit higher because my protein intake is higher. And then I have zero carbs to kind of compensate for that. Yeah, carbs are low. So that's what I always noticed that
gluconeogenesis, you're going to excrete amino acids.
Yeah, and then instead of utilizing the carbohydrate for energy, you use the proteins.
Yeah,
so you got more.
And there's waste, right? Because it's going to pull
exactly
the glucogenic amino acids out, and the rest are going to become waste.
Exactly. Dean, you sound so clear. It's amazing.
Morgan joked with me. She's like, when I was coming back from Southampton, when I messaged you and said these are the mics I'm looking at, I gave her the courtesy message of I'm buying this for the podcasts, and she didn't reply back. And then she looks at the bank statement and she goes, "What's this £300 from Amazon?" I'm like, I told you I was buying a microphone. And then she's like,
it's one consultation, man.
Yeah, well, and then she turns around and goes, "Well, if you got to spend 300 on a mic, I'm going up to," and then it's like that. I'm like, Morgan, you don't realize that this is a business expense. And she's like, "Well, such and such what she was looking for, like a new pair of runners or something, or shoes." She was like, "That could be a business expense." I'm like, "No, that's not how it works."
Yeah, you've been on Nal's podcast again, right? And another podcast recently, with the new mic. So I was listening to those and I'm like, fuck, man, it's going to be a big difference. So
yeah,
good stuff.
I mean, it was well needed. I mean, even like I said to you, I must send you a picture. I've got a mini USB fan connected to the camera now, so it can't overheat. I have a dummy camera, a dummy battery running into this power pack, because the last few times I didn't realize that over time the battery in the ZV-1 will actually discharge faster than the USB's charging it. So you should run off a dummy battery. So
right, yeah. So mine is always connected. It doesn't have a battery attached anymore. So with this pro setup, you got to do more content, man. Time to blow some light into your YouTube channel.
Like I said before, once you get to this age of 4, 5, 6, kids have activities every evening, and like you, that 9 to 5 hour, you want to stay in the office for that time, and then you've got your evenings and your morning times.
I'm only doing 9 to 5 now. I think I did 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week since I was graduated, since 21 years old. And even when I was at university, I would do studying and then do family stuff, because we had some family issues going on with divorces and stuff. So I'd help the family out and then find ways to go to the gym and work. So like last month or after Bali, it's like, I don't want to do this anymore, man. I really do not want to spend my whole day working and then work from you go to the gym from 9 to 11 and then 12 to 3 I would still work. And I'm like, I can't do this. So now I'm play Oblivion, play video games in the middle of the night. It's great, man.
When people look for consoles from me, because I'm in the UK, I get a lot of activity from the US or from Australia, of all places. And my hours don't change. I'm in Eastern time. I'm 9 hours behind you. I'm like, well, my last slots of the day are 4:30, 5 p.m. at a stretch. I try and be out of here at 5, but if I need to, I might let a consult go at 5 p.m. No later than 5:30. And then sometimes you get someone begging you for it with a later one, and I'd be like, well, if you want a consult at 5:30, it's going to be double the rate, and I'm going to have to sort stuff with Morgan. And then other times it's I've got guys who wake up at 3:30 in the morning to have a consult with me, and I'm like, well, you're making a sacrifice. You want to meet me, these are my hours.
Yep, I do.
No, but you don't have. We're the cream of the crop, man. You don't have to sacrifice shit. And people cringe at my rates, but I still get them. Why is it so
supply and demand?
Yeah, and then said, "Do you know anybody cheaper?" So, yeah, I have them on every month. Kurt and Dean know exactly, if not even more, on certain subjects than I do, and they're still affordable now. But for how long, I can't guarantee. So
for me, it's not
hurry
even
the fuck up.
I'm just full. People buy content. I'm like, well, I got one spot 2 weeks from now. Take it.
Oh fuck! Is it that busy?
I mean, I will only work between 12 and 5. That's it.
Yeah.
I have that many clients that I can't get it any less than that. But I work 5 hours a day, just Monday through Friday. I'll respond like depending on how much someone's paying me, I might respond to stuff outside of that, like a text. Like, I'm not working outside of that.
20.
No. Why? There's zero reason.
No, I know. So, but if you're booked 12 weeks in advance, then that's another time to increase the rate.
Yeah, but you guys get it. Like, what? Yeah. There's a certain amount of money that doesn't matter anymore. It's not going to improve my quality of life.
No.
So it's like I don't need to necessarily like. Yeah, you could make more money, but I'm not going to work more to do it. I would raise my rates to do it. I ain't doing any more work.
Yeah. So that's what I've been doing.
I did that for years. But for other people. Hell no.
No, hell no, man. No, I know. It's the best being self-employed and setting your own days.
I didn't realize you literally my wife fucking kills herself. My wife must work 8 hours a week. She's the head web designer for a marketing company. She does the NFL, so anything National Football League in the United States, their logo, their internal stuff. She does like the Super Bowl logo. She does She does all of that shit. That's just one of her projects that she has to work on, and she makes good money, but she's not paid for what she does. If she had the NFL on her own, she'd make $100,000 a month. I mean, I don't even know what her company charges them, but it's like you don't get paid what you deserve when you work for someone else.
No, but that's the same as when I was a business consultant, right? You charge like $500 to $700 per hour, and you see a fraction of that.
Yeah,
and it all goes to the company.
I know. I get every cent. I made a joke last night because I'm taking my son on a charter fishing boat, and it's not cheap. But like we've been promising this, and in fact, and my wife was like, it's a lot of money. And I said, well, hold on 1 second. Let me ask my boss for a raise. It's been a long time. Okay. He said, yeah, I got a raise. Let's not worry about it. Please just enjoy it.
That was the whole segue of Steve said about the mic. And when I was flying back from the UK, I text more. He was like, I'm buying this mic from Amazon. It's like £300 sterling.
Yeah.
She didn't reply. And then when she looks back at the bank statement, she's like, what's this £300 for an Amazon? It's like, the mic for podcasts. And then it turned into, well, you bought a mic, so I'm going to have to spend money on Nike runners or something. It was like,
just let them, because in the end, the women are part of your success, right? Without them, you wouldn't be able to do it. So like my wife's on the payroll now. I give her like $5,000 a month, just to help out.
Yeah, why not?
And
you can.
But that's only... Yeah, of course. I wanted to retire her, so I said, "No more PT. You just work for me now. Here's $5,000 a month," which is insane in Thailand. It's like $10,000 everywhere else. Yeah. So, and she just lives off that and spends her money, and she's an expert now in giving birth. So I don't have to do any of that research, and then she keeps everything tidy, regarding the operation. So that it's a big thing. And if you guys can do the same,
my wife won't stop. She always is.
No, so my wife is very stubborn as well. But if you I think Chase finally got his wife on board. She was also very stubborn for 2 years not to get on board, and he said as soon as I did that, my income increased. So
that's what I tell my wife all the time. I get stuck doing. You'll see very soon. There's domestic things that have to be done, right? So like I have to stop. Like every day, there's an hour that we have to go get the kids from school.
Right.
Take them. That hour, I could be making hundreds of dollars if I wasn't getting the kids. So if she didn't work, she could handle that. I also, at 5, I stop and I make dinner for everyone. If I didn't have to grocery shop in the morning and cook dinner and do all those other things, my income would double. By her not working, I would make more.
So I finally got it through to her. Said, listen, I know these things are a little bit housewifey. But if I spend more time working, if I get like 8 solid hours, and of course I was getting like 14, sky's the limit for me. So I'd rather pay you to do all of that and then delegate to
don't make any more money
staff.
Working more.
No.
My wife's on salary. She doesn't get shit for working more.
Yeah. So it's slowly, like inception it, slowly. And then at one point when she starts working for you, she's like house operations manager. That's what I call my wife. CEO of the house. So everything runs smoothly, right? I don't have to do shit just to make money. So you pay her like a fat salary that's more than she would make herself, and then your salary will double.
Of course, I know. It's just going to take time for her to become.
It takes time, yeah.
But every time I give her money now, she gives it to the kids. Like if I give her cash, she puts it in the safe for my son. I'm like, that's for you. I give him money. Like that's for you, not to spend.
Just next time you go on a holiday, at the end of the holiday, pitch it. That's what I did.
Yeah.
Said, why don't you just come work with me? Not for me, because, women, I don't
No,
want to work for you. I
no,
need
my
my
wife
own
gets it.
assist.
No. My wife gets it. I can't do any of the computer stuff without her. But I could do more
Yeah.
computers. So I could make more podcasts if she helped me.
Exactly. So if she helps you make more money by doing the back end stuff that you can't do or don't want to do, that's what my wife does. She edits, right? I mean, I'm a horrible recorder, but then in the final product, it's nice. Like I stutter and stumble over my words and these medical jargons. It's fucked up. But if like she does that for like a couple hours every video, and then helps the house operations going. So all I have to do is work and earn money. And then when I earn money, it's so much that I can afford her salary and staff and nice holidays, and then still have money to save on the side, because the upside potential of what we do, because we're on social media, is just insane. Right?
Yeah. I mean, even here, Delegate Morgan, we got a cleaner, and she pitched it to me, and we have a lovely woman comes in once per week for 4 hours and does like deep cleaning things. Like and Morgan likes cleaning the house, but it just takes time away from family activity. That this woman comes in, deep cleans the bathrooms, like does benign things that you wouldn't want to spend time on. That then I'm like to Morgan, if that gives you more free time, because I'm in here regardless, then you've got 4 hours on a Thursday to work more or go do other errands. That the delegation,
or just do nothing. So yeah, that's the best decision I ever made. Put the wife on the payroll fully, and then she can do whatever she wants, and then allows me to make more money, and that making more money is literally double. Because then you have time for podcasts, you have time for content, and the more you put yourself out there, the more you hoard yourself out on social media, even though it's terrible. The more money you make, it's linear. It's a little linear, So yeah, that will be my recommendation. Let's discuss one more topic before we close off this podcast.
10, if that's possible.
10, yeah, we'll make it work. So the tariffs in the US, it's of course it's a fear-mongering tactic to manipulate the economy, and now Trump wants to apply tariffs to movies, so that's putting some fear. But what I've been wondering since the tariffs came in, especially with the Chinese tariffs war, a lot of products that we use come from China. A lot of people don't even know that the peptides that they use are coming from China, and they're a little bit scared, like, oh, it's coming from China. Listen, the raws are coming from China, whether the pharmaceuticals company uses that. Like the growth hormone is all produced in China, and then it's repackaged in the United States, even the pharmaceutical ones.
Read if you look at the Bayesian testosterone studies, look at the bottom under the conflict of interest stuff, where you list all the vendors. The raws that they used for the testee was from Chinese labs.
Yeah. So people have no idea that that's actually coming from China. But now with the tariff war, 30%, 50%, 100%, 150%. So I'm wondering if that's going to affect the steroid prices, if that actually is going through. Like everything that I know about economy eventually will affect our business. So that means that steroid prices and all that stuff will go up. Not because you have to pay tariffs upon importation in Thailand or in America or other parts of the world, because it's all shipped stealthily, right? At least through the underground labs. But it's simply a cascade downwards on production, because they have to divert some of the legitimate products that they're now losing money on to the illegitimate products that go through a different supply chain. So I do think eventually it will go up, the prices. By how much? Will it go up 150%, 250%? It wouldn't surprise me. Like, have you guys heard anything through your connections? Because I know that my connections, they say that, sourcing is a little bit more of an issue now, whether those are peptides or raws. Those are the predominant stuff that we use. And that some of the prices have gone up, but that's not directly the effect of tariffs. It's mostly due to the restrictions.
So is gear included in this?
Yeah, everything. Gears, peptides.
I understand that market better than the peptide stuff.
Okay.
I think that there was an initial shortage, which drove out of the small like home brewers that were doing small quantities. They basically dried up. They couldn't afford to buy raws or couldn't get them in. There's a handful of bigger ones. They were able to survive through. They raised their prices, perhaps prematurely or too much. And now that stuff's still trickling in, the prices are actually starting to come back down to some degree.
Okay.
A lot of those things. Certain things like a MASD, which is nearly impossible to find, will stay high. Primo will stay high, even though there is primo production going on. I mean, I think they're going to come down short term, as it was an overreaction, I think, to the shortage.
Could be, yeah.
But what's left in the US is a lot of what I see is a lot of just junk, like just stuff that just shouldn't be. Like, and you, within the bodybuilding world, you have a lot of people that are very price sensitive. And so they would use a $30 bottle of absolute garbage versus spending 50 on something that's going to be good. And then they complain about getting lumps and burns. And
did you guys notice that in the consultation request that problematic or injection site problems are more common?
Trash is out there now because people are cutting right there. It's like what happened in the other like recreational drug market, where the cocaine gets cut. And the farther down, you do the same with steroids. So it's supposed to be 100 milligrams, they're putting less in. They're using more fillers. You know, a good example is also just manufacturing process. Like if Primo's cooked over 205 degrees, it gels. It needs more BA, so it's going to burn. You're injecting more alcohol. If, you know, Test-Sip is cooked over 150, it's going to gel, and it requires more solvent. Like all these things, there's a very exact way to do all these things. And the guy that's doing it in his bathtub doesn't know that. He's just putting it on a stove and letting it cook. And when it starts to smoke, he pulls it off. And then he has to make a liquid again. So you're getting a lot of that crap. You're getting stuff that's not filtered. You know, filters cost money. They're hundreds of dollars for the proper filters. For stuff. And if it's not filtered, you're injecting sediment in yourself that shouldn't be there. Certain drugs are filthier than others. EQ is filthy. Deca is really filthy. Test-C is filthy. Trenbolone has a lot of filth, especially acetate. And if the guys aren't spending a couple $100 on filters and they're just bottling stuff, it's going to hurt.
Because that's what I see in my DMs and consultation requests, is that the rate of post-injection problems are increasing.
Because it's junk that's left out there. The majority of the stuff out there is garbage. And that I think should level out as the supply slowly creeps back up to where it was. But it's
you think it's coming back though? Like I haven't heard any reports that production is being ramped up.
I guess in other areas of that country, there are factories still making stuff. It's just not in the region. Again, I don't know what goes on with the government there, because they have they regulate all that stuff. They're allowing it in certain places and not others. I don't know what the underlying stuff is that's going on, but it seems that it's not non-existent. Just those compounds we listed before seem to not be, they're not produced right now. I don't know why.
Yeah, and there's no ETA on when it's coming back. So I stocked up on Test Primo, Masteron, quite a bit, whatever I could find. And then all the guys that I know that produce, that are reputable, that said that we just can't do it. And we don't trust any of the suppliers that are out there right now that say that they have it. Because the last thing we want is to, have problems with our customers and then don't come back, because it's very competitive now, the market. Right? And the last thing you want is to do dirty on your customers and give them junk and then say, this brand is now, going belly up and we're not coming back even when they start producing quality again.
Yep.
I had
Dean, what have you heard so far?
Well, I had a client send me a bottle of Parabolan from an underground lab in Europe, and it was bright green methanolone. So I'm looking at it and it's like McDonald's shamrock green color. And
they would put some methylene blue in there. They put the Dr. Dean special and they made it injectable methylene blue. That's more bioavailable, bro.
And this client was like, I'm gonna take a guess that there's no methanolone or Parabolan in this vial. I'm like, unless you want like Hulk blood, I would not be putting that anywhere near.
Like, was it like really green?
Like really, really green. Like, you know the way when you can have like a touch of yellow from potential oxidation when they overcook things. This was green. This was like copper green. That I don't know what's going on. Where obviously an experienced person would look at it and go, I'm not going near that. But you have maybe some newbies to speak that don't know these things, or just get a bottle and like, oh, it's green, okay, and then it goes.
Tren is orange and Primo's green and Masteron is black, and
I saw a bottle that was labeled Primo, that when you flipped it over to where you would normally list the ingredients, it said testosterone propionate on the back.
At least you're being honest.
They didn't bother changing the back label.
Yeah. So I
They're
get
not
these
even
questions. I
outlined.
used to get these questions on the Q&A or by DMs. Yeah, I took Primo. Steve, you said that Primo was an aromatase inhibitor. It should bring your estrogen down, but my estrogen doubled when I
It's
went
called
with a tested
testosterone.
Primo. Yeah, you're just on more testosterone. Such a shame, though, that this, like, and with less pharmaceuticals, like the pharmaceutical Anavar is almost impossible to find. Only Iran produces that.
No, it was
They,
law, so there is no
yeah, they took that off. But then,
outlaw.
but I believe methanol acetate tablets are making a comeback in
It's
the
not
US.
FDA approved yet.
And regarding the peptide stuff, like I know Kurt is not really in touch with the peptide manufacturers, but Dean is. Have you heard something similar that the prices of peptides might increase at one point also?
Not yet. And
Not
obviously,
yet, okay.
I'm very close to the owner of a company, and nothing has been
Okay, that's good. Yeah,
been filtered
I've heard
through.
some rumors that they're worried, not confirmation, but that eventually the peptide might increase due to the tariffs or limited trade operations between the U.S. and China. Now, of course, the company you work with is not in America, but some of the affiliates that I work with are based in America, and they source in China, and that means that through supply chain, either they have to find an intermediary company or a country where they store, so the Dubai Trade Free Zone, for example, or another trade free zone in Singapore, where they could just China, Singapore, and then due to the tariffs there in the trade free zone, they should be able to circumvent it. But yeah, some companies are a little bit worried that direct shipping or even the compounding pharmacies in the US, you know, some of them produce locally. They get the raws from China, so there's a way around that. But then if they buy the vials directly, like it's 5 milligram, 10 milligram, 50 milligrams vials directly from China, that the prices might increase eventually. But I think, again, with the tariffs, I don't think it's going to last because it just affects the economy. And I think it's just a scare tactic to manipulate the market.
The UK, the UK signed off on a metals deal. I heard it earlier. So they've been not forced into, but like an aluminium and a couple of other metals deals from tariffs from the US. So that's signed off. Supplement ingredients, obviously we get some from China because you have obviously all these botanical companies and dietary supplement manufacturers, like they make medications and peptides and whatever else. With Ireland and importing into the UK and Ireland, where we have manufacturers, there's been no price increase on our side from that perspective. And then I asked about dietary whey protein as an insight. This is another heads up. Whey protein isolate has gone to town in terms of pricing. So if you're looking at whey protein isolate, it has gone up by about 5 British sterling per kilogram for 1 kilo of raw, which if you do some research, you'll start to see a drought to speak in whey protein isolate. Me personally, I've stopped our whey protein isolate powder for the time being because the cost price of it is astronomically high that I just can't justify inflating a retail price to bring the product in with the global increase in the raw.
No amino spiking?
And this is...
Just add some more taurine in there, man.
You know what? And this is probably like that with amino spiking, the new... Well, I wouldn't say new, but again, I wouldn't do it as protein blends where you'll get companies blending whey isolate, hydrolyzed whey concentrate into a product to try and create a whey protein isolate product that is a blend. So pay attention. Like you'll see all the big players move in this direction. And if you look at like marketing trends analysis, even the big companies like bulk manufacturing companies that would hold the big share of like stuff like whey protein and EAAs that like my type of business would produce, but it wouldn't be an anchor or flagship without giving away names of companies. They're going to start increasing prices of their protein. So if it's not already happened, some of these like big bulk companies, if you use a lot of whey protein isolate, I would suggest like what we gave the heads up with the raw situation, whey protein isolate is something to buy now at whatever price you're buying at before
Yeah.
it really takes off. Because who, like, if I was to release our whey isolate again and we buy a really high quality whey isolate raw, it's 90%, so 27 grams per 30 gram serving.
Mhm.
If I was to bring that in with that increase in raw, the price inflation brings like a kilo of whey isolate to about 49 to 50 pounds sterling, that
Wow.
me as
Fuck.
a consumer would not pay that. So,
So that's what, $30 for a pound? Yeah.
yeah, roughly, yeah. That
Fuck.
you're, you know,
A pound of protein.
well,
$40.
so with a bit of insight again on an education perspective, what classically happens, because obviously there's farms in Ireland and dairy and whatever, farmers normally have a choice between beef manufacturing and dairy. So
Mhm.
when beef is in high demand, they just slaughter the cows and keep making beef. And when there's dairy demand, they'll raise the cows to an older age, keep milking it, keep selling the milk and obviously the dairy produce that comes from the milk extraction. But they have now high beef demand and high dairy demand. So they're able to basically go, do I kill the cow early? Do I grow the cow quickly and kill it early, get the meat demand? Or do I pasture it and keep getting the money out of dairy that they have the run of the mill now where it's both are in high demand?
So that means the prices are going up because you can choose. Yeah.
And the only way I can sort of see it from a smart perspective is you try not feed into that demand for a time period and see, does some of the price drop as a consequence of the lower demand? But it doesn't look like other people want to follow my strategy and they're just going to start inflating. The price of whey is going to inflate drastically, which isn't a good
Wouldn't
thing.
surprise me. No,
Which isn't a good
wouldn't
thing
surprise
then, that those who rely on like low casein or low lactose whey isolates.
Well, when you look at the bigger picture, this entire industry relies on whey protein. So when you go to the expos, how many of those companies there are just have whey protein on their product list? And when you extrapolate, let's say the price goes up 20% and the demand goes down, then the expos get smaller, then there's less money in the sport, the prize money goes down, and this all trickles down then. So fingers crossed it doesn't get that far, but it wouldn't surprise me. Maybe an economic recession is kind of brewing, so it wouldn't surprise me that prices of everything are going up and then the income is coming down. And then since bodybuilding is still a hobby for most, then the demand for everything regarding bodybuilding and fitness is going down also along with the recession.
I mean,
all times ahead.
To put into perspective, the price of whey isolate, raw whey isolate, 5 years ago was about 120% lower than it is now. So that's how much it's inflated. And then creatine, well, obviously, what happened with the economic downturn of 2020, creatine skyrocketed due to production being starved, basically. At one point, like 1 kilo of creatine was around, like raw price was about £4 raw. And now it's nearly triple that. And it stayed there. And that's why creatine at one point in time was very, very cheap to buy as a supplement. And now you're spending like $30, $35 probably for 500 grams. It had to go up with that increase in price of raw. And that's sort of, my transparency. I've always said with our company that you let people know these things, that I'm not willing to put the price up because of the increase in the raw. So save up on
it's better just save up or just don't produce it. So why don't you produce creatine or whey isolate? Because it's too expensive and it doesn't make sense for the end consumer. So or at least for the manufacturing process. I know Kurt's got to go, so let's wrap it up here. 1 year anniversary Anabolic Roundtable. We got many more years to discuss cool stuff. So thank you guys so much, both of you, for joining in and showing up every month consistently. because doing this podcast consistently with other people, impossible, dude. Impossible. Kurt, Dean, any parting words for this 1 year anniversary?
No, just thank you to everyone who's
Yeah,
tuned in every month to listen to us ramble on for an hour and a half to 2 hours.
They fucking love it, man. They can't live without it. Big names can't live without the Anabolic Roundtable. Trust me. You'll see when you get to the expos. Dean, did you go to Germany? No, right? You didn't go to the FIBO?
No, not in the end. We ended up going to Poole for that Easter vacation, so I never went in the end.
Yeah.
Probably a story for another time. Who I was helping at to pull out a show.
Yeah. Save that for the next podcast. Save it for the next
that.
Cool. Hey, thanks guys so much for joining. All their social media links are down below as usual. And we'll see you next month with a boatload of new topics to break the internet yet again. Dean, Kurt, I'll see you guys next month.
Bye.
Thank you.